Chapter 98. Ifong was just about to ask when a beam of white light lit up. Baize's body suddenly lit up with a blinding light, like the sun, dispelling the surrounding darkness. He felt his chest relax. The suppressive force had disappeared. The light on Baize's body grew brighter and brighter. His snow-white figure instantly turned into a huge white beast. His fur was pure white without a single blemish, and the horn on his forehead was crystal clear. With a swipe of his foreclaws, he charged towards the black dragon in the sky. Oh, it's that fur ball. Xunying's eyes widened. She looked at the white beast in surprise. Yifeng's mouth twitched. What the hell was a fur ball? Seeing that he could no longer hide it, he had to explain. Spirit Master is the divine beast Baize. He has been living in the Yi family's myriad beast peak for the past 10,000 years to prevent the Mirage Sea beasts from entering the three Azure realms and wreaking havoc in the human world. Oh. She nodded and asked calmly, "Do you have more like this?"
Ah. Huh.
Ifong was stunned. What else? It looks delicious. Ifong. By eat, she meant the beast, right? Yes, it must be. Out of friendship, he reminded her, divine beasts are not easily controlled by humans. No, she didn't want to control it. She just wanted to eat it. Just as he was about to explain, the flood dragon and the beast that had been fighting with each other finally descended from the clouds. They stood on opposite ends of each other in the sky. Both transformed back into their human forms, but the flood dragon's human form retained the characteristics of a beast's body. It was dressed in a black robe and had a horn on its head. The face under the horn was covered in black veins. There was even a faint black chi coming out of it. It looked a little like the one on the Nagi back in the tower. Demonic chi, Ifong exclaimed. He looked at the black figure in the sky in disbelief. It's a demonic flood dragon. It's not a spirit beast, it's a demonic beast. Demonic beast? Xuning paused. Was it a tribe or an alliance? Baize. Before he could ask, the demon dragon suddenly spoke. Its voice was a little sharp, and it carried an exceptionally cold aura. It sneered at Baize and said, "I didn't expect you to enter the Mirage Sea of your own accord." Baize frowned, and his face darkened. After a while, he said coldly, "Demon Jiao. It seems that you still remember me." It sneered, and the killing intent in its eyes intensified. "In the past, when you were on the shore, I couldn't beat you. But now you're offering yourself to me. It just so happens that we can now settle the score for injuring me 10,000 years ago." "You can't beat me," Baize said coldly. "Then you can try." It snorted coldly and suddenly waved its hand. Suddenly, the seawater under its feet boiled like boiling water. Large patches of black shadows appeared on the surface of the water and broke out of the water in a moment. Only then did they see clearly that they were all high-rank spirit beasts, and they were all floating on the surface of the sea behind the devil Jiao. They were like an army of spirit beasts, and they could not see the end of them. The water tribe. Baize frowned. Beast-tide. Ifong was also shocked by the sea of spirit beasts. At a glance, he saw that the weakest of them was at least 8th stage. He did not expect the demon Jiao to be able to summon such a large army of beasts, and all of them were of the water tribe. One had to know that cultivators usually contracted with spirit beasts that lived on land. Because of the many restrictions on the water tribe, few contracted with them. What's more, the water tribe's battle power was greatly reduced on land. But it was different in the water. The Mirage Sea was obviously their main battlefield. Ha 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 ha. The demon Jiao laughed even more arrogantly. "Baize, even if you're a divine beast, don't think you can stop my army of water tribe. What's more," he paused, and his cold gaze suddenly swept in the direction of Xuning and Ifong. "Don't you always like to protect those humans and prevent the beast tribe from getting close to land? I wonder if you'll still be able to protect these two cultivators when we fight today?" Baize frowned. He clenched his fists, and thousands of lightning bolts appeared and shot toward the demon Jiao. "Humph." The demon Jiao snorted coldly. A large amount of demonic chi flowed out of his body, blocking the lightning bolts. He raised his hand toward the water tribe and said, "Kill them." With a crashing sound, the huge waves on the surface of the sea covered half of the sky. Waves of water tribe spirit beasts covered the sky and pounced toward the two of them. Bai Zai's expression changed. He transformed back into his original form, and white light shone from his body. He released the suppressive force of a divine beast, trying to stop the beast tide. However, the water tribe was obviously affected by the demon Jiao's demonic qi. They continued to pounce on the two of them. Shin. He turned and tried to fly over, but the demon Jiao blocked his way again, holding him back. What kind of luck was he having today? Yifeng's face turned pale. He hurriedly summoned his spirit sword and held it tightly in his hand. He looked at the dense group of spirit beasts in front of him with trepidation. The beast tide was about to engulf the two of them. The demon Jiao's arrogant laughter filled his ears. "Ha ha ha ha. Today I'm going to tear you into pieces. Director, lend me your sword." Before he could finish speaking, Shining suddenly reached out and took the spirit sword from Yifeng's hand. Before Yifeng could react, he felt something tighten around his collar. He lost his footing and found himself behind the sword. Shining stepped forward and stood in front of a sword. "Palm Shin." Just as he was about to speak, she suddenly shouted, "For the Alliance!" With that, she swung the sword in her hand. A long beam of white light shot out toward the beast tide. It was as if the sky and earth had been split into two. There was a crashing sound. The ferocious beasts were all cut in half at the waist. Their bodies fell into the sea like dumplings, creating huge waves that dyed the entire surface of the sea red. In an instant, they were all destroyed. Yifeng, Demon Jiao, Bai Zai, this is Sword Qi. Shen Ying remained calm. She turned the sword in her hand and pointed it at one of the beasts in the sky. Tilting her head, she said, "How many pieces did you say you wanted?" Demon Jiao, "Mama, I want to go home." Demonic Dragon, "Mama, I want to go home." 2 minutes later, the sea was silent. The sea was silent. "It's noon. It's time for lunch." Shunning nudged a certain someone beside her who was still in a daze. "Director, do you not provide meals when you travel?" Yifeng turned to look at her, but his eyes were unfocused. His face was filled with, "Who am I? Where am I?" Sigh, forget it. Shining felt that this trip was a waste. She had thought that she would be able to have a good meal, but there was nothing. It seemed like the director was not as sensible as the masochist's father. She sighed. She turned to look at the sea and saw that there were all kinds of small animals being washed up. Suddenly, he felt a ding sound in his mind. So many seafood. Chapter 99. Xin Ying's eyes lit up. She walked towards the shore and pulled up the fish tail, which was half the height of a human. She turned around and asked out of habit, "Director, you know how to forget it." She swallowed her words. Seafood can be eaten raw too. As she spoke, she raised the sword she took from Yifeng and started slicing the raw fish on the fish tail. Yifeng's eyes, which were already wide open, widened even more. What was she doing? Was she really going to eat it? Holy shit. She was really going to eat it. Come over. Shun Ying waved at him. Who the hell wants to eat with you? So when you asked if you could eat it, you really wanted to eat it? Wait. Spirit Master, what are you doing? Where did the plate in your hand come from? Why are you helping her to set it up? Don't forget that you're a beast too. Yifeng finally regained some of his rationality, but it all collapsed again. He had been dreaming since a quarter of an hour ago. That's right. It must be a dream. No cultivator would treat spirit beasts as food. Even if they did, they wouldn't come all the way to the Mirage Sea just to eat it. Thank you, Furball. Shunning patted the person in front of her. He helped her carry the plate and arranged the raw fish better. Bai Zai stiffened. He wanted to turn around out of habit, but he didn't want to shake off the hand on his shoulder. He could only lower his head and let the redness on his face spread to his hair. Shining, who was full, had already turned to look at the half of the seafood on the beach. She sighed as she looked. It's such a waste to leave it here. Director, do you have a bag that can store a lot of things and keep them fresh? Yifeng was stunned. He forced himself to come back to his senses. What bag? Storage bag? You're not only eating, you want to take it away. There's so much seafood. It'd be great if I could bring it back for Chef to process. She muttered subconsciously. Just as she finished speaking, a blue bag appeared in front of her. Shen Ying's eyes brightened. She took the bag and glanced at the person who was still lowering his head. Thanks, Furball. After saying that, he stood up and walked forward. He began to throw the seafood on the ground into his bag, one by one. What a great harvest! Bai Zhe stood still, his head still lowered. After a while, a low voice floated out like the wind. You're welcome. Shining felt that this bag must be the greatest invention in the world. The space was big and could keep things fresh. Whatever was put in could still be taken out in its original state. She stuffed at least 100 pieces of seafood into the bag to fill it up. Patting the weightless storage bag in satisfaction, she decided that when she returned, she would definitely request for a similar one from Father Niu. When she returned to the shore after collecting the seafood, Yifeng had already been sitting on a rock by the side in a daze for nearly an hour. He glanced at her and subconsciously took a step back. Sect Master Shen. Suddenly, he understood why the Xianyuan and Yin families were so cautious and fearful when they saw her. If she wanted him, his legs would also go weak. That sword was too terrifying. Director, thank you for your sword. Shen Ying handed the sword in her hand to him. Yifeng's little heart trembled even more. You're welcome. He had never felt that the sword was so heavy. If it was not his intrinsic dermic artifact, he would have thrown it away. Where do we go next? Shen Ying asked. Yifeng stiffened and said tentatively, It's getting late. Should we go back first? She tilted her head. She had enough ingredients. But you haven't found your pet? Pet? Sect Master Shen, thank you. I'm not in a hurry. One sword had killed tens of thousands of marine creatures. If this continued, there would be no living creatures left in the Mirage Sea. I see. Shen Ying was silent for a while, feeling a little embarrassed. Suddenly, as if remembering something, her eyes brightened. Wait a minute. With that, she turned and ran into the forest. A moment later, there was a rustling sound, and the surrounding trees were suddenly pushed aside. She dragged something with one hand and walked back step by step. With a light fling, a huge, pitch-black object was thrown in front of Yifeng with a bang. Do you think this one is okay? Shen Ying asked seriously. Mo Jiao. Looking at the dying flood dragon on the ground, Yifeng's mouth twitched violently. Sect Master Shen, although flood dragons are comparable to divine beasts, but they have already become demons. I am cultivating the immortal Tao. It is not good for me to be associated with demons. Oh. Shen Ying nodded and looked at the demonic flood dragon on the ground. So demons are so useless? They can't even be pets. Everyone. Forget it, let's not eat it. Don't, great immortal. The demonic flood dragon, which had been pretending to be dead, suddenly jumped up and shrank its tail. Tears immediately flowed out of its eyes. I haven't become a demon completely. Look at my right eye. Half of it is still black. With that said, it moved its head and moved its right eye. Indeed, only the top half of the eye was red. The bottom half was still black. Great immortal, please have mercy on me. I won't become a demon again, no more. It shook its head vigorously, its tears falling like rain. Seeing that Shen Ying was unmoved, it turned to Yifeng and said, I won't dare to do bad things again. I'm willing to form a master-servant contract and become this fellow Taoist's pet. A very, very good pet. Yifeng. I want a contracted spirit beast, not a pet. You're willing to break your demonic bones? Disperse all your demonic qi? Bai Zhe suddenly said in a low voice. I'm willing. It nodded frantically. It did not want to be eaten. Human cultivators were too scary. It did not want to go to the Azure world to eat people anymore. All right. Bai Zai's expression darkened. He hit the flood dragon's head with his palm. A white and red light flashed across his palm and entered the flood dragon's forehead. The demonic flood dragon screamed and rolled on the beach in pain. The remaining demonic chi on its body slowly dissipated. Its skin and flesh began to split open, dripping with blood. It looked like it was shedding its skin. Its body became much smaller, and the new flesh on its body was slowly covered with a layer of green scales. In less than half an hour, it had already shed its demonic bones and turned into a small green flood dragon. The only difference was that the black flood dragon horn on its forehead had disappeared. Its cultivation level had dropped by more than half. Just like the cloud-bearing beast from before, it was only at the 13th level. Contract. Bai Zai glanced at Yifeng. Huh. Yifeng paused for a moment before replying. Oh. He hurriedly conjured a seal with both hands and recited a long incantation. A golden contract array appeared under the flood dragon's body. Golden light began to spread throughout its body. The little flood dragon had no intention of resisting. It did not dare to. When the golden light completely covered its body and entered its body, a golden contract mark slowly appeared on its forehead. The contract was completed. It took less than half an hour. It had to be said that this was Yifeng's fastest and smoothest contract. It was also the simplest one. His contract partner was a 13th level spirit beast, a flood dragon that could transform into a dragon in the future. And it was a master-servant contract. He subconsciously touched his empty forehead. A master-servant contract. If the master died, the servant would follow. If the master was injured, the servant would suffer. It was like a cannon fodder contract. Even ordinary spirit beasts would not accept a master-servant contract, let alone a high-grade spirit beast. Yet he had contracted a flood dragon. Indeed, he was dreaming, right? Chapter 100. Thank you, Patriarch E, for your warm hospitality. You are indeed a big family. We have benefited a lot from this trip. Lone Moon cupped his fists and bowed, smiling like a spring breeze. Supremacy Lone Moon, you are too kind. Yifeng returned the greeting. It is our honor to have Supremacy and Sect Master Shin visit our E family. Thinking of his contracted green flood dragon, he felt even more touched. His words became even more sincere. He turned to Shining and said, Sect Master Shin, I will never forget your help. Although the method was a little too thrilling, the ending was still acceptable. You're welcome. Shining said nonchalantly. Come again next time. Yifeng. Again. Equals @ smiley face. Then we will take our leave first. Lone Moon nodded and smiled at the E family supervisor on his right. The supervisor's face darkened as if he had thought of something. Lone Moon then summoned his flying sword and pulled Shining away. Yifeng and the supervisor heaved a sigh of relief. They had finally sent these two off. In just 3 days, they had lost at least 10 years of their lives.
Huh? Wait.
Spirit Master, where are you going? I'm just sending them off. Don't fly away with them. Fellow Taoist, is there anything else? Lone Moon stopped at the transportation array and turned to look at the person who had been following them for no reason. He had thought that it was a disciple sent by the E family to send them off, but this was a little too far. Yifeng could not even see through his cultivation level. Furball? Shining turned back. Is there anything else? Bai Zai faltered, as if only just realizing that they had left the E family's territory. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but after staring at her for a while, he blushed again and turned his back again. Shining. This trick again? Who is this guy? Lone Moon nudged her and asked in a low voice. Do you know him? He's a furball raised by the director. He's been raising it for tens of thousands of years. Shining explained, he was originally a white animal. We went to the Mirage Sea together. Spirit beast? Lone Moon paused. A spirit beast that could transform was at least at the 11th level. Then why is he following us? How would I know? Shining shook her head. He has social phobia and doesn't like to talk. Could it be that it also likes to eat seafood? She thought of the bag full of food. What's seafood? Father Nyo. Shining didn't answer. She seemed to have thought of something and pushed him. Lend me your storage bag for a while. What? I need to decorate something. Lone Moon glanced at her suspiciously, but still took off the storage bag by his side. After some thought, he took out a brand new green storage bag and handed it to her. Here. Shining took it and opened the blue bag that Baizé had given her. She reached into the bag and pulled out a fish head that was taller than a person. She moved it into the new bag. Then he continued to reach inside for a moment. She took out all kinds of dead beast corpses one after another. Moreover, they were all halves, and the variety was rich and complete. It was more complete than what was written in any book on spirit beasts. Lone Moon. It had only been a day since she had last watched over him. What had she done? Where did these come from, hey? B people went out to sea to hunt beasts. This time, she went to invade the sea. Are you a elite guard? Shining searched for a whole half an hour before stopping. She handed the bag of seafood to Baizé. Sorry, I forgot to separate the spoils. Here. Seeing that he didn't take it, she directly stuffed it into his hands. You've worked hard too.
Take it.
You don't have to send me back. Come to Invincible Sect when you have time.
Goodbye.
With that, she turned and pulled Father Nyo into the transportation array. Baizé, who had a bag of seafood stuffed into his hands. He didn't want this? Oh yes, Shining, what's this spirit beast called? Lone Moon asked. I think it's called by something. I forgot. Anyway, it's a white, long-horned, and looks quite delicious.
Oh.
Oh yes, the director called it Spirit Lord. Spirit Lord? Lone Moon was stunned. He suddenly thought of something and almost fell off his sword. Divine Beast by Zay. Holy shit, no way, so fast? Family, Myriad Beast Peak. Spirit Lord. Feng bowed to the person in front of him. May I know what instructions you have for me? Where is Invincible Sect? Before he could get up, a familiar cold voice sounded. Invincible Sect? Feng paused. A moment later, he answered, I heard it's in the demon realm. Lead the way. Huh? Led what way? She invited me to play, Baizé said with a straight face. Feng's mouth twitched. He doubted his own ears. Spirit Lord, didn't they just leave? It hasn't even been an hour. Even if she invited him, wasn't this a little too fast? We'll leave in half an hour. Baizé ignored his question and turned to walk into the cave. What did he just hear? Spirit Lord was actually going to find that terrifying sect Master Shin. Could it be that he was traumatized by her act of tearing apart the beasts and wanted to get back at her? That was possible. After all, divine beasts were the proudest race. Wait. Spirit Lord, why are you carrying the black spirit flower? Didn't you say that this was a sacred item of the divine race and no one was allowed to touch it? A gift. It was her first time going, so she naturally had to bring a gift. You must be freaking kidding me. Shen Ying and Lone Moon traveled for 5 days straight before returning to Invincible Sect. Once they reached the back hall, Shen Ying collapsed on the chair and could not get up. 2 days as a guest, and half a month on the road. Suddenly, she understood why everyone in this world could fly. The map was really too big. This trip had used up all the money she had accumulated over the years. Most importantly, she did not get to eat anything good. Important. Sect Master, Elder Lone Moon. Just as she was thinking about how to get Father Nyo to bring her to the city for a meal, Yu Hong walked in with a red invitation card. Her expression was a little strange. This is a greeting card from the Yi family. Greeting card? They're sending a greeting card so soon? They seem to be in a hurry. Lone Moon was a little surprised that they had just returned. Thinking that it was an ordinary courtesy, he took it without looking at it carefully. Thinking about the business they had just negotiated, he instructed, Go and reply to them. Tell them that our Invincible Sect welcomes them at any time. No. Yu Hong's expression was a little strange. This invitation card was not sent using sorcery. Did the Yi family send someone to deliver it personally? Lone Moon was stunned. This was a little too sincere. They are really polite. Then go and reply to them directly. If it's convenient, just set a date and come over. We'll be waiting for you, at any time. No. Yu Hong's mouth twitched. The E family patriarch is already here. They've already set off? Lone Moon was even more surprised. Is there a need to be so anxious? Then go and inform the rabbit monarch. Just let them pass. No, Elder Lone Moon. She stepped forward a little anxiously and pointed outside. What I mean is, they are already at the foot of the mountain. Lone Moon. Shining. What the hell? Asterisk phi asterisk phi asterisk. Two pairs of suspicious eyes instantly focused on a certain someone. Why are you looking at me? Lone Moon glared back. I'm talking about a proper business deal. I'm not cheating anyone. Oh, asterisk 2. Oh, your sister. Retract your doubtful wavy lines. Chapter 101. Invincible Sect. Spirit Chi flourished. The originally quiet mountain peak suddenly shone brightly. Golden light shot up to the sky. The surrounding spirit chi seemed to sense it and gathered at the top of the mountain. The golden light instantly illuminated the entire sect, turning it into a sheet of gold. I Ching, who had been in seclusion for more than 3 months, finally opened his eyes. He sensed that the surrounding spirit chi was different from before. He immediately reacted and hurriedly guided the spirit chi into his body. The golden spirit chi entered his body bit by bit. Only when it was completely absorbed did the strange phenomenon above Invincible Sect disappear. I Ching sensed carefully and found that his cultivation had risen to the late stage of soul formation. He was delighted. His first reaction was to leave the cave and go to the back hall. He saw Shining from afar. Master, I'm out. He stopped mid-sentence. Only then did he realize that there was another person beside Shining. Dressed in white, he stood very close to Shining, holding a plate in his hand. He was passing the fruits on the plate to the person beside him. That dazzling gaze was very unpleasant to look at. I Ching faintly felt suffocated. It had only been a few months. Where did this little bitch come from? Chef. Shining saw the person at the door. She threw the fruit in her hand and walked over. You're out. Mas too. I Ching walked over and looked behind her. Their gazes met. There seemed to be a crackling sound in the air. Why is there an outsider? He emphasized the word outsider and stepped forward, intentionally or unintentionally separating the two of them. May I know who this fellow Taoist is? Little bitch, stay away from my master.
Oh.
Shining explained directly. This is the park master and furball. What group? It's the head of the E family, Lone Moon explained subconsciously. He pointed at Yi Feng beside him and turned to look at Bai Zhe. And he did not know how to introduce them. He frowned subconsciously.
Bai Zhe.
Bai Zhe took the initiative to speak. He turned to look at Shining and emphasized again. I am Bai Zhe. With that, his face began to turn red. She could call furball alone. Yi Feng. So, not only did the spirit master not hide his identity, he was also planning to announce it to the world? I Ching's frown deepened. He took a closer look at the other person's cultivation level, and suddenly, he had a guess, but his heart was even more stifled. Fellow Taoist Bai Zhe. Bai Zhe nodded. He glanced at the person behind him, and suddenly felt a little unhappy.
Don't worry about that.
Shining interrupted their self-introductions and nudged I Ching. Chef, to celebrate your coming out of seclusion, why don't we start cooking now? And master? He habitually wanted to nod, but his gaze swept across the person in front of him, and he instantly changed his mind. Master, it's 6 in the morning now, it's not lunchtime yet. He had to keep an eye on him, determined not to give this little B***tch a chance to get close to his master. Shining faltered. This was the first time she had been rejected. Can't you just treat it as your morning tea? There's seafood. Didn't master say that we have to eat on time? What I mean is, it can't be late. I can also make some snacks now.
No.
Was Chef such a professional person?
Ing.
Bai Zhe suddenly took out a white thing from the side and handed it to her. He glanced at her and immediately lowered his head. For you. This can be eaten too.
What?
Only then did Shining realize that there was a flower that was as white as jade in his hand. The flower and leaves looked like they were exquisitely carved, and there was a faint fragrance coming from it. Moreover, the moment this flower appeared, an extremely pure spirit chi was emitted from it. It made one feel refreshed, and even the surrounding spirit chi seemed to become thicker. This is... Lone Moon could not help but take a step forward. He had never seen a flower that could emit such spirit chi. "What is this?" Shining asked. Bai Zhe was stunned, as if he had been asked an important question. His face turned red. It's... For a long time, he could not finish his sentence. Out of habit, he wanted to turn his back, but he forced himself not to. "Black spirit flower," Ifong could not help but say, with a pained expression. "This is the sacred item of the spirit master's race." Even he had not seen it many times, and he actually gave it away just like that. Oh, after all this time, it was still a vegetable. Shining was about to reject it when Radish walked in with big strides. "Little Missy, you said you would water me." Before he could finish the word water, he saw the black spirit flower in Bai Zhe's hand. Radish exploded instantly, rushing over like a firecracker. "This is too much. You actually brought a wildflower here. Take it away, take it away. Is my little Missy someone this kind of wildflower can have connections with?" After saying that, he looked at Shining with tears in his eyes, accusing her. "Little Missy, didn't you say that I was your only flower? If you want a flower, I can bloom it too?" With that said, he pretended to lift the robe he was wearing. "Stop." Three Lone Moon, I Ching and Yu Hong, who was at the side, suddenly thought of a certain biological knowledge. They stepped forward together and pressed down on his hand, their faces darkening. Looking at the black spirit flower again, they suddenly felt that the surrounding spirit chi was frozen.
Cough.
Radish, stop fooling around. These two guests. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He immediately conjured a body-fixing spell, freezing Radish, who was still thinking of blooming. He quickly stepped forward and reached out to take the flower from Bai Zhe's hand. "Thank you, Bai. Fellow Taoist Bai. The two of you have had a long journey. Why don't you go to the guest room and rest first?" Although Ifong did not understand why they had suddenly come together to press the green-clothed man to the ground, he felt that the atmosphere was strange, so he nodded. "Then I'll have to trouble sect leader Shen and the two elders. Yu Hong, quickly bring these two guests to the guest room." Lone Moon hurriedly gestured to Yu Hong. Yu Hong understood and immediately stepped forward to lead the way.
"Please, please."
Ifong was just about to turn when he saw that the person beside him did not move at all. "Spirit Lord? I'm not leaving."
"Ah, huh."
Ifong hesitated. After thinking for a moment, he explained, "Spirit Lord is just going down to rest, not to return to the Yi family." Bai Zhe looked at Shining. His voice was still cold, but there was a hint of firmness in it. "I haven't finished eating." What did he mean? What haven't you finished eating? Fruit? But wasn't Sect Master Shin the only one who ate fruit just now? Before he could ask, I Ching's expression turned cold. "There's no need to trouble fellow Taoist Bai. I've always been in charge of Master's meals." As he spoke, he took a step forward, wanting to take the plate from Bai Zhe's hands. But Bai Zhe did not let go. I Ching tried a few times, but to no avail. For a moment, they were in a stalemate. Their eyes met, and there was another crackling sound of electricity. "There's no need. You're a guest. I'm holding it steadily. I'm Master's only disciple. Of course I'm in charge of such things. I've held it before. That's because I'm in seclusion. You can continue your seclusion. I'm sorry to disappoint you, fellow Taoist. I won't be in seclusion for the next few hundred years." Bai Zhe, annoying mortal. I Ching, little bitch who stole Master. The two of them held onto the same plate, not giving way. The atmosphere suddenly dropped to a freezing point. A while later, "You two are..." Shining looked at the two of them and took a big bite of her melon. "Flirting. Don't misunderstand. I'm not prejudiced against gays." As she spoke, she even waved for the two of them to continue. "Everyone." "Master?" I Ching snapped back to his senses and turned to look at her. There was obvious anger in his eyes. As if he could not hold it in any longer, he took a step back and pointed at Bai Zhe. He says he's called Bai Zhe, but Bai Zhe is a legendary ancient divine beast. No one has ever seen it before. It's hard to say if it really exists. How could it appear in the mortal world? I think this person came to my invincible sect with bad intentions. I don't have bad intentions. Bai Zhe also did not like this mortal who kept blocking his way. I'm just here to play. It was Shun, your master, who personally invited me. Impossible. He shook his head. Apart from eating and sleeping, Master never cares about anything else. He doesn't even have many friends. Why would he invite you? Shun Ying's mouth twitched. I did say that. Master. Yi Qing's eyes widened in disbelief. It was written all over his face that you're actually siding with this little bitch. Shining felt a little creeped out by his stare. Subconsciously, she explained, I was just saying casually. I didn't think. After all, his beast form was quite appetizing. Well, Furball, why are you here this time? Did he really come all the way here just to play? Bai Zhe stiffened. His originally cold and calm expression suddenly became one of panic. I want. After a long while, he still could not complete a complete sentence. He glanced at the black spirit flower in Lonmun's hand. As if thinking of something, his hair turned redder and redder. Want what? Why don't you say it? Che, are you blind? Lonmun could not stand it anymore. He walked out and waved the flower in his hand. You came all the way here. You're stuttering and giving me flowers. What else can you want? Shunning was stunned. Suddenly, her eyes widened and she looked straight at Bai Zhe. Holy shit. You want to hit on me? Lone Moon, Yi Qing, Yi Feng. Bai Zhe. Oh, ****. Chapter 102. Invincible Sect, Rear Hall. Master, I feel that this Bai Zhe is not a simple person. It's better not to interact with him too much, Yi Qing said with a serious expression that he had never shown before. He's quite nice. Shunning replied as she nibbled on a pastry. He even knew how to carry a plate. Most importantly, he looked quite delicious. Yi Qing, who was stir-frying, paused. Master, you've been in seclusion for a long time. You don't know how evil people can be. He's not a human. Beast hearts are evil too, Yi Qing quickly added. If he has other motives, I think we should quickly send them back. Don't be so pessimistic. Didn't he say he was just here to play? She looked into the pot and pushed him. Hurry and flip it. It's going to burn. Master, Yi Qing frowned. He flipped the pot a few times and said in a low voice, he obviously has ulterior motives.
Don't be fooled by him.
Was she so easily fooled? Don't worry. Although Furball doesn't talk much, he's not a bad person. Master? Yi Qing was shocked. He turned to look at her. You don't really want to find a Dao partner? Dao partner? Shunning paused. She then remembered that he was talking about a partner. I've never thought about that, but I'm already so old. Even if I fall in love, it's not a big deal, right? No. Yi Qing threw away the pot in his hand. Shunning was shocked.
Why?
Because... He paused. He could not think of a reason. Who the hell knew? Anyway, he just hated the way that person stuck to Master. He thought about it and ignored the food in the pot. He grabbed her hand and said, Master, believe me. Finding a Dao partner is a big thing. You can't do it casually. That Bai Zhe doesn't look like a good person, not a good beast. What's more, you're a human cultivator. You shouldn't be with him. He didn't say he wanted to find Furball. She didn't have such a strong taste. I agree with what he said. Before Shining could reply, Lone Moon suddenly raised his hand and said with a serious expression, I don't care if you're looking for a partner or not. But anyone is fine. Forget about Bai Zhe. Look, Master, Father Niu said the same thing. Yi Qing nodded his head vigorously. This was the first time he was responding to Lone Moon's words. Master, you have to reconsider. Lone Moon. Who's your Father Niu? Then according to you, what kind of person should I look for? Yi Qing was stunned. He thought for a while, trying his best to find someone who was pleasing to the eye, but realized that no one was worthy of his perfect master. Just the thought of another person appearing by his master's side made him feel a little irritable. Anyway, it can't be by Zay. The god race has always existed only in legends. No one has ever seen a real god race. Whether he is real or not is still uncertain.
He shook his head resolutely.
After thinking for a moment, he added, "Oh right, that Ifong won't do either." As a beast-taming cultivator, he actually recognizes the beast clan as his master. One look, and I can tell that he's not a good person. Bad guy Ifong. Hey, did you guys forget that I'm here too? Sect Master Shin. He had no choice but to speak up and announce his existence. Did they specially call him over just to badmouth him to his face? Rest assured, the Spirit Lord's identity is indeed the ancient divine beast Bai Zhe. He glanced at Shining, the corner of his mouth twitching uncontrollably. He still could not believe that the Spirit Lord's taste was so strange. The Spirit Lord does not belong to this realm. He came to the lower realm because he was injured accidentally. Coincidentally, he met the ancestors of the Yi family in the Mirage Sea. He was the one who forced the beasts to retreat and saved the ancestors. He also taught the art of taming beasts to the Yi family, allowing our family to establish a foothold in the Upper Azure race. In this world, apart from the divine race, who else has the ability to control tens of thousands of beasts? He explained in a low voice. After thinking for a while, he added, "Of course, Great Immortal Shen is an exception. All these years, the Spirit Lord has been thinking of ways to return. But the boundaries of the three realms are not easily breached even by the divine race. The Yi family tried many ways, but they could not open the realm gate. The ancestors of the Yi family once promised the Spirit Lord that if he ascended to the immortal realm, they would do everything they could to help him return to where he came from. But all these years, no one from the Yi family has succeeded. They could not even go to the immortal realm, let alone the more unpredictable divine realm." His face was full of guilt. That's why, all these years, he's been staying with the Yi family. And because he is at the Mirage Sea, those aquatic beasts do not dare to go ashore and enter the Upper Azure world. And that black spirit flower, he glanced at Lone Moon. That is the only thing the Spirit Lord brought from the divine race. It is said that the flower has the ability to connect the three realms. It is also the Spirit Lord's only hope of returning. Now that he has given such an important thing to Sect Master Shin, we can see his sincerity. You said that this flower can open the gate of the three realms? Lone Moon took out the black spirit flower and asked ambiguously. That's right. Ifong nodded vigorously. The Spirit Lord did mention it before. That's why he has always kept this flower personally and never shows it to anyone unless it is to open the realm gate. He looked at the flower for a long time, but could not see anything special about it other than its spirit chi. What's more, even Radish could not see anything wrong with it during the day. He handed the flower to the person beside him. Shening, use your cheat's eye to look at it. The corner of Shenying's mouth twitched. She took the flower and looked at it carefully. She could not see anything different about it. I've never seen this flower before, huh? The black spirit flower requires strong spirit chi to activate the realm gate, Ifong explained in a low voice. I heard that this spirit chi is almost the same as when one ascends. And there is only one of this flower in the world. Before he could finish his sentence, he heard a cracking sound. Shin Ying's hand tightened, and the crystal-clear flower was instantly crushed by her. Ifong could hear the sound of his heart breaking. Sect Master Shinyu, it's open. Before he could finish speaking, Shining suddenly spoke. She opened her fingers, and a crack the size of a finger appeared above her palm. It was like a bolt of lightning, flashing with white light and floating in midair. Everyone. Holy shit, she really opened it? So, all she had to do was crush it? Then what had the Yi family done all these years of hard work for?
But
he looked at the crack that was even smaller than an eye. Can such a small crack really lead to the divine realm? Oh, then let's open it a little, Shining replied casually. She reached into the crack and pulled it out forcefully. All they heard was a loud crack. The crack that was originally only a finger's width suddenly opened up like a piece of paper. It was 2 to 3 feet wide. She really tore the realm gate with her bare hands. Go get Furball, let's go home for dinner. Yifeng, Lone Moon, I Ching. Chapter 103. The realm gate opened. When Yifeng came to report, Bai Zhe could not believe it. After all, he had tried for tens of thousands of years, until he saw the white gap that was as tall as a person floating in the air. He could feel a familiar aura coming from inside. It was the aura of the divine race that he had not seen for tens of thousands of years. This really was the realm gate that led to the divine realm. But why now, at this time? He did not want to go back. Bai Zhe did not feel happy at all. He even felt like crying. He had just given away the black spirit flower and decided to stay in this realm. Why did the realm gate open now? Spirit Lord, is this? Yifeng asked excitedly. Bai Zhe subconsciously took 2 steps forward and nodded. Yes, that's great. The promise of the Yi family for generations was fulfilled in his generation. He hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed. Congratulations, Spirit Lord. You can finally go back. Bai Zhe didn't answer. He turned to look at Xining. His face was still cold, but his eyes were filled with grievance. He seemed to be hoping that she would say something. Xining moved a little awkwardly. She coughed and waved. Furball, goodbye. The light in his eyes dimmed. He felt even more aggrieved. He clenched his fists and took 2 steps closer to her. His face flushed red instantly. He took a deep breath and said, as if he had found his voice, I've only given the black spirit flower to you. Xining hesitated. Oh. Why did he tell her this? Really? He thought that she did not believe him. He said anxiously, in the future, I will not give it to anyone else. You have to believe me. That was the most important token of the divine race. He reached out to grab her hand. In all these years, she was the only woman who made him give away the black spirit flower. I Ching, who had been standing at the side, cut in between the 2 of them. He blocked Bai Zhe's increasingly heated gaze. Master has already used the black spirit flower to help you open the realm gate. Stay away from my master, you little bastard. The realm gate is open for a limited time. Fellow Daoist, you should leave as soon as possible. Bai Zhe was stunned. He glared at I Ching unhappily. The fire between the 2 of them burned again. As expected, he hated this mortal. Spirit Lord, we really have to hurry up. Yifeng pointed at the realm gate that was beginning to shrink and reminded him anxiously. Only then did Bai Zhe turn around and look at the realm gate. Then, he turned back to look at Xining and took a few steps towards the realm gate. However, he stopped in front of the door and looked at the snow-white hole. His brows furrowed deeper and deeper, and he hesitated to take that step forward. If he went in, he would never be able to return. Never to see him again. Fellow Daoist, please. I Ching began to chase him away. Spirit Lord, the Yi family has finally fulfilled our ancestors' promise. You take care. Yifeng was also very emotional. Hurry up and go in. The realm gate is about to close. Lone Moon added. Even Xining waved her hand. Bye-bye, Furball. Go back and have a good meal. After thinking for a while, he added, and find a beautiful beastie. There was no future for beasties. He didn't want any other beastie. Bai Zhe felt like his heart was being stabbed with a knife. His stomach was filled with a sour taste, and he felt even more wronged. Suddenly, he recalled what Xining had said to him yesterday. Different species can't fall in love. Clearly, when they first met, she liked him quite a bit. And even touched. Why did she reject him? Oh, if he went back, not only would he be a different species, he would also be in a different world. Perhaps they would never see each other again. Then, he was filled with a strong sense of rejection towards the divine realm. He looked at the realm gate in front of him again, his gaze slowly turning cold. He took a deep breath, as if he had made up his mind about something. Turning to Shining, he said word by word, "I've decided not to go back." Before he could finish, he suddenly felt a pain in his buttocks. He lost his balance and fell into the realm gate. Instantly, he disappeared. The realm gate that had been touched quickly closed and disappeared. I Ching and Lone Moon then calmly retracted their legs that they had kicked out. Family Head Yi, Bai Zhe has already returned to the Divine Realm. "I'm sure the Yi family has a lot of follow-up matters to deal with," Lone Moon said seriously. He did not look guilty at all. "Family Head Yi, you are very busy. My invincible sect will not keep you for long," I Ching said naturally. "We will visit you again when we are free. Have a safe trip, Family Head Yi." Yu Hong, see the guest out. Yi Feng looked confused. By the time he reacted, he was already at the foot of the mountain. Was he being chased out? Also, the Spirit Lord was kicked out just now. Could it be that he didn't intend to go back? S.B. He felt like he should pretend not to know. "Master, what do you want to eat today?" I Ching instantly felt refreshed after solving a big problem. He automatically switched to ordering mode. "The seafood you brought back last time. Do you want to eat stir-fried, braised, steamed, or fried? How about all of them?" Shining was very satisfied with his current state. She had all the ingredients, anyway. "Yes, master, no problem, master." I Ching was in high spirits as he rushed into the kitchen. Seeing the two of them start their daily mental block, Lone Moon could not help but roll his eyes. But he still stopped in his tracks and sat down. I wonder how the seafood tastes." "Father Nyo." "What?" She wanted to chase him away and eat all the food for herself? "Who is Bai Zhe?" "Huh? What did she mean?" "He's in the plot you read?" Lone Moon paused. Then he understood what she was asking about. He frowned and poured himself a cup of tea. "When did you find out?" He did not mention it at all. "The day I came back," Shining answered honestly. "Shit." He almost spat out his tea. The day he came back was the day he heard the name Bai Zhe. "How the hell did you guess that he's a character in the plot?" He actually saw through it right from the start. How did she do it? She was a retard when she did not use her brain, but once she did, she hit the nail on the head. "I saw your reaction, and I knew." Although Father Nyo controlled the people of Invincible Sect a little too much, he had always been unreasonable. To outsiders, he was very polite and easygoing. He paid attention to his image and only dug holes behind their backs.
But he was different towards Bai Zhe.
He did not seem to like him from the start. Even when I Ching strongly objected, he stood firmly on his side. Even when he sent I Ching back to the Divine Realm, he gave him a kick. It was as if he was trying his best to prevent them from having anything to do with him. In the books you read, is Bai Zhe a troublesome character? Lone Moon did not answer, but his frown deepened. If he did not see Bai Zhe, he would have forgotten that this was a world written in a book. "He's not a villain, is he?" "I don't think so." He sighed and squeezed the teacup in his hand. "I said before, I don't remember many novels that little girls read. And those plots all happened in the immortal realm. Bai Zhe is a divine being. He's already stronger than ordinary immortals. He should be considered the main character's cheat. Then it has something to do with Chef." Chapter 104. What has it got to do with him? Lone Moon faltered. "He's not the main character. Anyway, the main characters in the book all have calamity constitutions, the kind that are possessed by Conan. There's no benefit in getting involved with them, especially the main character in this book is a bit. Anyway, it's hard to explain. That's why I don't like that Bai Zhe. The disasters caused by the main character are more or less caused by him. Besides, the female lead is a... Oh. Shining immediately lost interest and turned towards the kitchen. "Chef, are the dishes ready?" "Yes, master, they'll be here soon." I Ching answered and walked out with 2 plates of seafood. Shining immediately picked up her chopsticks and focused on eating. "Hey, let me finish." Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Why did she always listen halfway? "Didn't you mention it? It smells so good." Shining gave I Ching a thumbs up. Instantly, she felt that her stomach that had been crippled for a few months was alive again. Grilled rice, grilled rice, grilled rice. Father Nyo, eat. Eat your ass. Who would chat like this? He hadn't finished speaking. Who the hell wanted to? It looked really good. How about? He was just about to reach for his chopsticks when Shining reached out and stabbed the biggest piece of meat in the bowl, leaving only a bowl of gravy. Hey, leave some for me. It was a whole piece of meat. What was left after that? Just as he was about to take a piece, Shining suddenly loosened her hand, and the meat in her hand fell back, splashing the gravy on the bowl and all over him. Holy shit, Shining, you have... Before he could finish, he saw that she suddenly looked up and stared at the sky without blinking, her brows furrowed. What? It was rare to see her so serious. He subconsciously looked up and followed her gaze, but only saw a blue sky. What do you see? Shining was stunned. After a while, she murmured, "Up there seems to be a door open." Door? What door? He looked seriously and even used his divine perception to check. There's nothing? How could there be a door in the sky? It's gone. Forget it. It must be an illusion. Shining turned around and did not pay much attention to it. She picked up the piece of meat again and finished it in 2 bites. Lone Moon, who was 1 step too late. Mother****. This guy was doing it on purpose. He definitely was. Ever since the incident at the Immortal Ascension Pagoda, Invincible Sect's reputation had reached the same level as the 3 aristocratic families. Countless cultivators who did not belong to any sect were eager to join the Invincible Sect. Finally, it was time for the annual recruitment of disciples. With Invincible Sect's current strength, there was no longer a need for the entire sect to go out and pick up disciples. Even Lone Moon did not plan to leave the sect. Instead, he left this matter to Yu Hong. Yu Hong was the oldest among the 9 female cultivators and also the one with the steadiest personality. That day when he was teaching them, her cultivation was the highest, so she naturally became the eldest senior sister among them. Although Siyu's power had surpassed hers in the past 2 years, she was still the one everyone trusted the most. If Lone Moon was the butler of Invincible Sect, then Yu Hong was the assistant butler. Most of the things that Lone Moon could not handle were handled by her. That was why he felt at ease leaving the recruitment of disciples to Yu Hong. Yu Hong was indeed responsible. She brought the 9 sisters out of the demon realm. She even specially divided them into 9 different immortal cities. Each person was in charge of a place, not just Upper Azure Town. In less than half a month's time, everyone returned with the disciples they had recruited. There were quite a lot of people, at least a few hundred. They were dressed in different clothes, and their cultivation levels ranged from Chi refinement cultivators to nascent soul cultivators. Moreover, all of them were well-built and full of energy. One could even see the faint pulsation of their muscles under their clothes. Lone Moon. These are new disciples. Straight face, flips table. What the hell was this déjà vu feeling, as if they were in a wet market? Why were they all recruited a bunch of steel? And all of them were women. Didn't they say that they would only look at the quality of their spirit roots and slowly choose them after they were brought back? Which one of them looked like a sword cultivator? Did they have any misunderstandings about the style of the sect? Yu Hong. He pulled the red-robed girl over, exasperated. These are the elites you chose? That's right. Yu Hong nodded vigorously, her face full of excitement. Rest assured, Elder. Siyu has tested each of their skills. They are indeed very talented. Talented my foot. He only saw muscles. What about sword cultivators? Let's see you. That King Kong Barbie, test them. If she can find sword cultivators, I'll consider your win. Sword. Yu Hong's expression froze. She must have forgotten, right? She must have forgotten. But, Elder, aren't we a body cultivator sect? Who told you it's a body cultivator sect? You guys were the ones who became body cultivators, all right? But everyone is here. Yu Hong looked troubled. She was about to explain when her gaze landed on someone, and her eyes lit up. Sect Master. She left Lone Moon behind and walked quickly back to the crowd. She shouted, "Junior sisters, this is the person I mentioned to everyone before, the Sect Master of Invincible Sect, the strongest cultivator in the Upper Azure world." The scene immediately exploded. Hundreds of pairs of eyes fixed on Shenning and shouted in unison, "Greetings, Sect Master." Her voice was so imposing that it shook the entire universe. A certain someone who was carrying a water bottle and preparing to water Radish. Why were there suddenly so many people?
Hi.
Hello, everyone. Shunning waved her hand reflexively. Everyone's eyes lit up and they replied in unison. "Greetings, Sect Master." Thank you all for your hard work, she replied subconsciously. Everyone was stunned. Someone took the lead to reply, "For Invincible Sect." Everyone shouted again, "For Invincible Sect." Their voices were so loud that they even used spirit chi. Even the hall shook. Lone Moon, son of a B*T. Did they think this was a military parade? How was this recruiting disciples? This was F*King developing a cult, wasn't it? They had brought a bunch of brainless fans back. His heart was so tired. Lone Moon did not like this group of disciples very much. In order to prevent the sect from becoming a body cultivator sect, he had put in a lot of effort. If this group of disciples were to be accepted, then Invincible Sect would not be able to turn the situation around. However, he had carefully checked everyone's qualifications. Other than one or two with poor spirit roots, the rest were really not bad. They had indeed been carefully selected, but the direction they had chosen was a little off. Lone Moon had no choice but to accept them. In the end, he only managed to get rid of a few nascent soul cultivators. It was not that their qualifications were not good, but that their cultivation had reached the nascent soul stage, and they could already be guests. There was no need for them to be disciples. Invincible Sect had just been established. There was no need for them to recruit guests. Looking at the excited disciples who had been accepted into Invincible Sect, Lone Moon was deeply worried about the future of the sect. But soon he did not have time to worry because he realized that his cultivation had actually broken through, and it was approaching the perfected soul formation stage. He could not suppress it any longer. He might be ascending. Chapter 105. Ascend. Shinning paused. She dropped the cake in her hand. "Really? Why are you looking at me so suspiciously?" Lone Moon's mouth twitched. "Can't I ascend? I broke through to the perfected soul formation stage 2 days ago. Isn't it normal for me to ascend?" Actually, he did not expect it to be so fast. Ever since that epiphany, he realized that his cultivation had been rising slowly. Baize's black spirit flower had been with him for a period of time. That special spirit chi seemed to be beneficial to his cultivation. He had finally reached the perfected stage in the past few days. Shun-Ing pursed her lips. "After you ascend, you won't be able to come down, right?" Back then, he nodded. After ascending to become an immortal, one would naturally go to the immortal realm. There are boundaries between the 3 realms. One cannot cross them at will. Wasn't that why Baize stayed in the lower realm for tens of thousands of years? Without that black spirit flower, even you would not be able to open the realm gate. "Oh," Shinning frowned. "Are you really leaving?" "This is the law of heaven and earth. If I succeed, I will naturally not continue to stay in the lower realm," he explained. Seeing Shun Ying's conflicted expression, Lone Moon's heart softened. He comforted her. "We'll have to undergo the ascension tribulation sooner or later. I'm already like this. I Ching probably won't take long. You still have to go through the tribulation. Why don't we just forget it? This place was quite good."
Bah.
He glared at her. "Do you think this is a vacation? I won't go just because I say I won't go. Haven't I cultivated for so many years to ascend to become an immortal? In that case, I know you can't bear to leave your hometown." He patted her shoulder and smiled. "The ascension tribulation is extremely dangerous. Unless I have no other choice, I don't want to easily trigger the tribulation lightning. I'm not sure if I can survive it. Don't worry. I'm confident that I can withstand the heavenly lightning. Don't worry." "No, I mean," she said seriously. "Father Nyo, before you ascend, can you leave enough spirit stones for your daughters? They would not have money to eat. Get lost. I don't have such a heartless daughter." He just wanted to spit a mouthful of blood on her face. His depression instantly froze in his chest, unable to go up or down. He was so angry that even the spiritual energy in his body became restless, as if it was going to gush out at any moment. Wait a minute, hissed Chiyu. I Ching's eyes widened. Your heavenly tribulation is coming. Sure enough, the surroundings suddenly darkened. In the sky above Invincible Sect, winds blew and clouds gathered. Purple lightning flashed faintly. Holy shit, they really came. Lone Moon was shocked. He did not care about being angry anymore. He turned and rushed out of the front hall. Looking at the tribulation lightning in the sky, he sensed the spiritual energy in his body that had begun to surge. He hurriedly formed seals with both hands and set up layers of arrays, activating the mountain guarding array. He checked carefully to make sure that the lightning tribulation would not involve the Invincible Sect. Then, he walked towards the array eye in the middle of the square. He was about to sit down cross-legged to undergo the lightning tribulation when he could not help but turn back to warn them. Shining, the lightning tribulation for ascension is no small matter. Don't rely on it. Before he could finish speaking, he turned around and saw that everyone had already retreated 100 meters away. They had even moved tables and chairs out, and he could faintly see peanuts, melon seeds, and fruits on them. He looked over as he munched on them. Lone Moon. Motherf asterisk Kerr. If he were ZZ, he would be worried that they would be affected by his lightning tribulation. It would be best if they were killed. Taking a deep breath, he suppressed his anger and sat down cross-legged. He cleared his mind of distracting thoughts and focused on facing the lightning tribulation. At this time, the sky was completely dark. The only light between heaven and earth was the purple flash between the layers of clouds. Finally, the first lightning tribulation struck. It struck Lone Moon, who was in the middle of the square. The array around him was broken in an instant. The ground beneath him sank a few feet. The huge pressure of heaven and earth spread out in all directions. If not for the mountain guarding array, the surrounding palaces would probably have been turned into ashes.
Wow.
Shunning looked up at the sky. This lightning was completely different from the lightning tribulation she had seen before. Are all the lightning tribulation for ascension this powerful? Yes, Master. I Ching explained in a low voice. When ascension happens, the purple heavenly lightning descends. It is the most powerful lightning tribulation in the world. It can directly refine the immortal bones. This is only the first mental demon tribulation. The later ones will only be stronger. Oh, Shunning nodded. She looked closely at Father Niu. He had already closed his eyes. It looked like he had indeed fallen into a mental demon. But in less than 5 minutes, he opened his eyes again. It was obvious that he had overcome his mental demon. Thus, the next bolt of tribulation lightning came down. As expected, this one was twice as thick as the previous one. With a loud bang, it struck Lone Moon's body. Instantly, the Dharma robe on his clothes was torn, and the flesh on his body split open. But a moment later, a special spirit chi appeared and began to repair his body. Then came the third. The fourth, it was different from the first one. This time, it struck continuously. It was the kind that did not stop. It seemed like it wanted to split Lone Moon's body apart and then reform it. Each strike was fiercer than the one before. How long does it take? Shunning asked as she munched on melon seeds. This is the 9-9 lightning tribulation. There are a total of 82 heavenly lightning. What about more than half? Isn't 9-9-81? Shunning hesitated. Why was it 82? I don't know either. I Ching paused. A trace of doubt flashed across his face. Although it's called the 9-9 lightning tribulation, I heard from traveling immortals that there are indeed 82 lightning tribulations. And the last one is the key to the test. Many traveling immortals have been defeated by this lightning tribulation. Oh, Shunning frowned. She did not think too much about it. She grabbed another handful of melon seeds and continued to munch on them. In less than an hour, Lone Moon had already withstood a total of 80 lightning tribulations. His body was already unrecognizable. Although the immortal chi carried by the lightning tribulation could repair his body, the speed of repair could not keep up with the speed of the lightning tribulation. He was already covered in blood. There were still 2 more lightning tribulations. He tried his best to stay awake and continued to withstand the next lightning tribulation. The lightning tribulation stopped for 3 breaths. The clouds began to move. A thick purple lightning that was almost black finally appeared between the clouds. Finally, with a loud boom, it struck down with an aura that seemed to destroy the heavens and earth. Lonemoon's expression was exceptionally focused. In an instant, he released all the immortal chi that he had been secretly restraining. His originally broken body rapidly recovered under the stimulation of the immortal chi. His immortal bones were formed. He directly faced the last lightning tribulation. With a loud boom, the newly formed immortal bones in his body withstood the last lightning tribulation. He had succeeded. Lonemoon's heart leaped with joy. His whole body relaxed and he fell to the ground. Although he had no more energy left, he felt that his whole body was different. It was as if he had been reborn. The originally rich spirit chi suddenly seemed pitifully little. Even I Ching's cultivation, which he thought was deep and profound, seemed shallow now. Except for Shunning. She still looked like a weak-looking bug. The clouds in the sky began to disperse. Lone Moon continued to repair his body, waiting for the light to fall. Suddenly, the sky rumbled. An even more terrifying lightning tribulation descended from the sky, heading straight for the completely defenseless Lone Moon. The 83rd lightning tribulation. Everyone was shocked. How could this be? The clouds had clearly dispersed. All the immortal chi in Lone Moon's body had dissipated. There was no way he could withstand this extra lightning tribulation. Just as the lightning tribulation was about to land on Lone Moon, Shunning released the melon seeds in her hand. In the next instant, she was already in the field. She reached out and grabbed. At the critical moment, as if grabbing a rope, she grabbed the tail of the purplish-black lightning. It stopped just a foot away from Lone Moon's head. Lone Moon was completely stunned. He never thought that there would be an 83rd lightning tribulation.
In.
What exactly was going on? She did not reply. Instead, her expression darkened and her brows furrowed. She grabbed the lightning tribulation and pulled it down forcefully. Come down. In an instant, a black shadow fell from the sky. With a loud bang, he hit the ground. Half of his body was buried in the ground. Shunning raised her foot and stepped on him. Word by word, she said, "Tell me, who told you to strike the extra 2 lightning tribulation?" Everyone. Chapter 106. What's going on? The person on the ground had not recovered from the shock of being suddenly pulled down. He wanted to get up, but found that the foot on his body was as heavy as 1,000 pounds. He could not move at all. Master. I Ching also walked over quickly. He looked at the person on the ground. Who is this person? Why did he fall from the lightning tribulation? I don't know, but... Shunning frowned. He was the one who struck the last 2 lightning bolts. Him? But that was the heavenly Tao's purple night lightning. Who could? He suddenly thought of something. He looked closely at the person's aura, and his expression darkened. You're an immortal from the upper world. Everyone was shocked. They looked closely. Indeed, he was surrounded by immortal chi. You know I'm from the upper world. Stand down. That person glared at everyone, his eyes filled with disdain, as if he was looking at something dirty. He said in a low voice, "You witch, what kind of spell did you use on me?" He actually couldn't get rid of it. Shunning did not move. She was still standing firmly on his shoulder. Lone Moon, on the other hand, supported his half-dead body and stepped forward. Since you're an immortal, why are you stopping me from ascending? The person laughed coldly. He looked at them even more disdainfully. This world has no path to ascension. No path to ascension. What do you mean? He had already passed the tribulation successfully. Of course I mean that none of you can become immortals. The person's eyes were full of mockery. He did not seem worried about his situation at all. You're just a small world. You want to become immortal? What a joke. I didn't say that you only had to endure 83 lightning bolts. Even if you had to endure twice that, you would not have the right to ascend. There is no heavenly gate in this world. No heavenly gate. That's right. I used the lightning tribulation to destroy your immortal bones.
I was just trying to save your life.
If your immortal bones were formed, you would definitely be rejected by this world. You're not even an earth immortal. You can't resist the pressure of heaven and earth. That's impossible. He had already sensed the light of guidance when he endured the 81 lightning bolts. He just did not know why it did not descend. Believe it or not, it's up to you. He continued to sneer. Why don't you think about it carefully? In the past 100,000 years, have there been any immortals who successfully ascended to immortality? Lone Moon fell silent. In all these years in the Upper Azure world, the only person who had successfully ascended was Patriarch Yu of the Yu family. But after the incident at the Immortal Ascension Pagoda, only then did he realize that he did not succeed and had instead become a demon. In that case, there really weren't any immortals who successfully ascended. He was instantly confused. Could it be that there really was no gate of heaven in this world? Then which door did you come from? Shunning suddenly asked. The person in the pit stiffened, and his face turned pale. It was only then that everyone came to their senses. That's right. Since immortals could come to the lower realm, how could there not be immortal sex? This person was obviously lying to them. I'll ask you again. Shun Ying's expression darkened. Why did you add lightning to the 99 lightning tribulations? Although it was called the 99 lightning tribulations, there were actually 82 bolts. Father Nyo's had become 83 bolts. It was obvious that he did not want people to become immortals. A trace of panic flashed across the person's eyes, but he did not answer. It was as if he was trying his best to hide something. Instead, he threatened, You guys, I don't care what methods you use to capture me, but I advise you to let me go. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences of the upper realm's anger. Is that so? Shun Ying's eyes narrowed. She finally lifted her foot, but this time, it was directly on his face. She pressed down hard, causing his head to sink into the ground. There was a faint sound of something breaking. Mimicking his tone just now, she said, Then why don't you send one so that I can bear it? Impudent, impudent. He seemed to be completely enraged. Suddenly, a white light shone from his body. Thick immortal chi exploded from his body and attacked Shen Ying like sharp blades. The terrifying immortal pressure caused everyone present to lose their footing. They immediately knelt down. Not good. Master. I Ching shouted in alarm. Yet nothing happened at all. Shen Ying stepped steadily on his face. She even used a little more force. Everyone. What's wrong? Shen Ying looked confused. No, nothing. Sect Master was indeed V587. How is this possible? That person's eyes were finally tainted with some fear, and he couldn't even speak clearly. He had clearly used all his strength. Why was there no reaction at all? Who exactly was she? Just as he was thinking about this, Shen Ying let go of him. She suddenly bent down and grabbed his collar. She pulled him out like she was pulling a carrot. Slowly, she said, Are you going to tell me the truth, or do you want to dig another hole and feel it? This time he was really panicking. His expression changed a few times. Suddenly, he thought of something. Gritting his teeth, he laughed coldly and said, Humph, you mortals who overestimate yourselves. So, what if you catch me now? Today is the day of reharvest. When the time comes, I will definitely get back at you. None of you can escape. What day of reharvest? Shen Ying frowned. He did not answer. In any case, his smile became more and more maniacal. His eyes returned to their earlier contemptuous look. He looked at them as if they were a bunch of dead things. Not talking? Shen Ying heaved a long sigh. This batch of people could not take a beating. She loosened her grip and kicked him hard in the back. With a crisp crack, he was kicked a few meters away. That person's immortal bones were broken. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he still refused to talk. Little Green, I'll leave it to you. Shen Ying waved her hand and said, Beat him until he talks. Yes, Sect Master. Siyu nodded vigorously. She clenched her fist and walked over. That person glared at Siyu. His expression became even more disdainful. Humph. How can a mere mortal's spirit chi endure? Before he could finish speaking, he saw the girl in front of him bulge with muscles. She suddenly grew a few feet taller. A fist the size of a bowl came crashing down on his abdomen. Uft! Blood splattered 3 feet high. You are a body cultivator. How could this be? Mortal cultivators all use spirit chi to cultivate. All sword techniques and sorcery required the support of spirit chi. He had immortal chi to protect his body. Spirit chi could not hurt him at all. But body cultivators did not use spirit chi. They only relied on their fists. What's more, his immortal bones had been broken. He could not use any immortal spells. He could not use any sorcery at all. He could only defend himself. In less than a moment, the immortal, who had been extremely unyielding just a moment ago, had been beaten beyond recognition. The blood in his mouth was like a small fountain, spurting out from time to time. Because of the sect master's instructions, Siyu was very serious. Every punch hit flesh. After a full hour, she finally stopped, panting. She copied Shining and stepped on that pig-like face. Then, she raised her hand and patted the person beside her. Senior Sister Yu Hong, take my place. I need to rest. All right. Yu Hong stepped forward with her fist. The immortal. Did she have to do this? She had to take turns beating people.
Damn.
She was actually a body cultivator. What kind of a place was this? Wu Su, I'll say. Wu Su. Was it not enough for him to say it?
Wait.
She had already confessed. Why was she still beating him? Why did she have to form a queue? Help. All the body cultivators. They had not seen such a tough punching bag in a long time. Line up orderly. Don't fight. Chapter 107. Father Nyo, are you alright? Shining asked. Lone Moon nodded. I won't die. Although his immortal bones were formed, he had used up all his immortal chi in order to withstand the 80-second bolt of lightning. Now that he had relaxed, he realized that his body was already at the end of its tether. Just a little more and his newly formed immortal bones would have broken. Yet there was no immortal chi in this world. Although he was already a quasi-immortal, he could not even recover. Chef, do you have a way? Shining turned to look at the person behind her, knowing that he was putting up a front. I Ching nodded. I'll help him repair his meridians first. With that said, he sat down directly behind Lone Moon and began to activate his spirit chi. The golden light around his body slowly enveloped the person in front of him. In a short while, Lone Moon looked much better. The wounds on his body from the lightning also began to heal slowly. But spirit chi was ultimately not as good as immortal chi. Lone Moon's wounds were still recovering very slowly. Shining sat by his side for a full 3 hours before I Ching opened his eyes. But Father Nyo was still sitting cross-legged, adjusting his breathing. He's healed. I Ching shook his head. I can only help him heal the wounds on the surface. Internally, spirit chi was of little use. He is to ascend as soon as possible, or else. He did not continue. The answer was obvious. If he did not ascend, he would have to become a traveling immortal. Shining frowned, then pulled open the door and said, Little Green, bring the one who struck lightning in. Yes, Sect Master, Siyu answered. The banging sounds outside the door finally stopped. In the next moment, Siyu dragged the swollen immortal into the door and casually threw him on the ground. The immortal rolled twice before coming to a stop. Shining picked up a fruit from the table and took a bite. After a while, she said, Begin. The immortal hesitated. Begin what? He subconsciously looked up and saw Shining in front of him. His body trembled uncontrollably. Instantly, he felt the wounds on his body hurt even more. All his stubbornness was gone. He hurriedly said, I'll speak.
I'll speak.
He was an immortal after all. In just a few short breaths, his wounds had already begun to heal. He took a deep breath, then slowly said, I'm just a small immortal guarding the Qing Tong immortal abode.
I
I didn't want to break someone's immortal bone. I was just following orders. I had no choice. Orders? I Ching's expression turned cold. We have never offended the immortals of the upper realm. Whose orders are you taking? Why would you do such a thing? I'm following the Manor Lord's orders. He weakly raised his head to look at the two of them. After a moment of silence, he continued, My master is still Stygian immortal son, Li of the Qing Tong immortal abode. It was his order not to allow the people of this world to ascend. I'm just a puny earth immortal. I can only follow orders. Why did he do that? I Ching asked in a low voice. The immortal was stunned for a moment, and a hint of panic flashed across his eyes. He immediately replied, I don't know either. This small world originally belonged to his lord. I don't know why he did this to it. What do you mean this world belongs to him? I Ching frowned. What do you mean? This world was originally created by his lord. He looked at the crowd with some fear and continued, You might not know because you are in it, but compared to the other 3,000 worlds, the Azure world is indeed very small. Years ago, immortal Emperor Guyu bestowed an immortal meridian to his lord. His lord used this immortal meridian to create a space and attract thousands of living beings to form the Azure world. So this world originally belonged to his lord. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. They had never thought that the entire Azure world was actually created by immortals of the upper realm. I advise you to let me go, the immortal said tentatively. I'm just an earth immortal, but his lord is a Stygian immortal. The entire upper Azure world is in his hands. If we anger him... The crowd fell silent. No one spoke. They had been working hard to cultivate, all for the sake of ascending to become immortals. Now, someone was telling them that no matter how hard they worked, they could not become immortals. What's more, the entire world was created by someone else. How could they accept this? What's the day of reharvest? Shunning suddenly asked, breaking the silence. The immortal's face turned pale in an instant. As if he had not expected her to ask this, he could not even hide the panic in his eyes. This reharvest. He stammered for a long time, but could not finish his sentence. Xinying's eyes turned cold. She put down the half-eaten fruit in her hand and said, Since your lord is so powerful, why doesn't he let everyone ascend? He even specially asked you to guard the heavenly gate. What is he afraid of? Nonsense, he shouted, trying to cover something up. Master, why would you be afraid of a small world? If he's not afraid, why are you panicking? Xinying tilted her head and continued, Let me guess. Your lord has been an immortal for a long time, right? He's worried that after these people ascend to immortality, one or two of them might be as strong as him, or even more powerful than him. If these people are not careful, they might remember where they came from. If they argue with him, it will be hard to explain. So, in for a penny, in for a pound. He might as well not let the people of this world ascend. That way, this world will always be his, right? You. The man's eyes widened. The panic in his eyes intensified, as if he did not know how to refute her. After a long while, he said, Don't spout nonsense. My lord is not someone who is intolerant. Intolerant, that's even worse. Xinying's eyes narrowed into slits. If that's not the reason, then what is his motive? Speak. The day of reharvest.
What do you want?
She stood up. The man's face was completely pale. His eyes were filled with guilt, but he did not answer, as if he was afraid of something. Xinying frowned. She could not be bothered to argue with him. She waved her hand and said, Little Green, continue. Yes, sect master. Siyu immediately stepped forward and grabbed the man's collar. What do you want? The man's eyes widened. He wanted to dodge, but found that he was already surrounded by more than 10 girls. I'm warning you, I'm an immortal.
No. Stop.
Siyu was just about to drag him out when suddenly, a golden light shone from outside. It swept across the entire upper Azure world, and a faint sound came from the horizon. The sound was not loud, but it sounded like it was ringing in everyone's ears at the same time. There was a huge aura coming from all directions. Everyone in the house felt their hearts palpitate. Their breathing quickened. They're here. The immortal's frightened expression changed. He suddenly laughed maniacally. Haha, the day of reharvest has begun. That's great. It's finally begun. Shunning frowned and led the group out. The originally blue sky was suddenly filled with multicolored light. The light was so bright that the ground was instantly illuminated. Wherever the light landed, the trees seemed to be nourished by something and began to grow at a crazy speed. Even the spirit herbs on the ground and invincible sect had blossomed into a field of beautiful purple and red flowers. Little big sister. Radish suddenly jumped up the mountain, carrying a large handful of dandelions. This light is so strange. Radish feels like its whole body is filled with spirit chi. Shunning did not answer. She only looked up at the sky. More than 10 figures flew out from the light and headed towards different parts of the upper azure world. Haha. Once the immortals who are waiting to be cleaned up arrive, all of you will die. The person who is still being dragged by Siyu laughed maniacally. Cleaned up? I Ching's expression darkened. What do you mean by cleaned up? Are those people immortals too? That's right. They're here to send you into samsara. He laughed coldly. This world is about to be cleaned up. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. They want to destroy the world? The man laughed even more wildly. He glanced at everyone, his face full of glee. You ignorant mortals. None of you can escape. All of you will. Before he could finish, Shunning kicked him, knocking him unconscious. I hate it when people talk nonsense. Chapter 108. In less than 10 minutes, the glow in the sky darkened, and the spirit chi in the surroundings became denser. It was as if the entire upper azure world had been flooded with spirit chi. There were even traces of immortal chi that had yet to dissipate in the sky. Could it be that what the immortal said just now was true? Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. The multicolored light from before was definitely a sign of the opening of the gate of heaven. Could it be that the dozen or so rays of light flying in all directions were really immortals who came to destroy the world?
But why?
As immortals from the upper realm, why would they target people from the lower realm? Sect Master, what do we do now? Yu Hong suppressed the panic in her heart and asked in a low voice. Shunning was silent for a moment before she asked, where are the most people now? Everyone stared blankly at her, not understanding why she would ask such a question. I Ching stepped forward and said, Master, the recruitment period for the various sects has just ended. I'm afraid they're all going through the entrance examinations now. The place with the highest number of people should be the main houses of the 3 great clans. Shunning nodded. Just as she was about to say something, a disciple rushed over with 2 jade tokens. Sect Master, we've just received a message from the Yin family and the Xian Yuan family. They said that they've encountered a strong enemy and are asking for reinforcements. Everyone gasped in unison. Only now did they understand that if those immortals really wanted to destroy the world, then they would definitely look for a place with the most people. Shun-ing hurriedly instructed. Chef, go to the vegetable clan first. If you encounter those immortals, don't force yourself. If you can run, run. If you can't, just drag it out for half an hour. I'll be right back after visiting the Yin family. Yes, Master. I Ching nodded. Time was of the essence, and he immediately summoned his flying sword. Just as he flew up, he suddenly thought of something and turned back to instruct, Master, bring Radish along. I know. Only then did I Ching fly away in relief. The corner of Xinying's mouth twitched. She turned to look at Yu Hong and continued, Little Hong, bring Father Nyo and go to Rabbit immediately. Do not leave the demon realm before I return. Yes, Sect Master. After some thought, she added, What about the Yi family? The director has Long Worm to support him. He should be fine for the time being. What the hell is a long worm? Radish, let's go. Shunning called. Rar. Radish's figure flashed, and it immediately returned to its original form, hugging her leg. Shunning thought for a moment, then turned around and kicked the corpse on the ground. She was sure that he would not wake up. Only then did his figure flash and disappear from the spot. Looks like this is going to be a big project. How troublesome. 5 minutes later, the man and the radish stared at the dense forest in front of them in a daze. Radish, didn't you say you knew the way? What the hell is this place?
Gee.
Originally, he recognized it, but the multicolored light just now had completely changed the surrounding scenery, so he couldn't do anything about it. G. Speak human language. How about I ask the spirit herbs? They should know, right? After saying that, it directly jumped down from her leg and jumped into the grass at the side. After a while, it came back with its leaves.
They told me to get lost.
The spirit herbs outside were not friendly at all. The corner of Xinying's mouth twitched. She suddenly felt a little irritated. If she had known that this radish was not reliable, she would not have split up with Chef. What to do now? This was different from the last time, where he could meet a kind-hearted little girl, huh? Xinying hesitated, then instantly became happy. She waved her hand at a figure in the sky. Little brother. The other party did not seem to hear her. He did not stop. She had to raise her voice. Little brother, the little brother who is dressed like a cabbage, in green and white clothes. The cabbage in the sky came to a sudden stop and almost fell from his sword. What the hell? Only then did he realize that it was him. He looked around in confusion. After a while, he finally found a figure waving at him. It looked a little familiar. He subconsciously flew down and saw clearly. You, aren't you the Shun? Shun what? Shun what again? Xinying. She took the initiative to introduce herself. She stepped forward happily. Little brother, long time no see. Not long, just a few months. Miss Shun, you. He looked her up and down. A thought flashed across his mind. Don't tell me you got lost again? Yes. She nodded vigorously. The corner of his mouth twitched. Got lost in the same forest twice.
What?
This is the same forest?
She really did not know.
Yes, this is the Tsongnan forest. It's a forest outside Inyuan City, he explained. Didn't I tell you before that I'm a disciple of the Scarlet Sun sect? My sect happens to be in Inyuan City, so I often pass by this place.
Oh.
She nodded. Then can I trouble you to bring me back again? This time, I'm going back to Inyuan City. I'm afraid I can't this time. He frowned and said awkwardly, I received an urgent order from the sect. All disciples have to rush back to the Scarlet Sun sect. I don't have time to send you back. Oh. She looked disappointed. The little brother seemed to feel sorry for her. He continued, Why don't you follow me out of this Tsongnan forest first? We're not far from Inyuan City anyway. All right, thank you, little brother. She nodded. Which direction? Just head east. He pointed to the right and was about to fly on his sword. Xinying grabbed his arm and said, We're in a hurry. I'll bring you this time. With that said, he felt his vision blur. In less than 10 breaths' time, the area in front of them suddenly became clear. The two of them were standing on a wide road. They were out. Wasn't this too fast? He looked at the person beside him in surprise. Could it be that she knew some kind of high-level spell that could teleport people to other places? No wonder he could not see through her cultivation level. He hurriedly bowed and said, Thank you, Senior. Inyuan City is just south of here.
All right.
She nodded and patted Radish on her foot, asking it to remember. Thank you, little brother. You're welcome, Senior. He smiled. Thinking of the sect's summon, he hurriedly said, My sect's transportation array is just ahead. I'll take my leave first. Goodbye. She waved her hand. The little brother bowed again, then turned and walked into the transportation array not far away. When he turned back to look, the woman had indeed disappeared. He sighed inwardly. He did not know which sect Senior had come out to travel. He actually met her twice. Moreover, he could not see through her cultivation level. She was either a soul formation or a traveling immortal senior. He did not think too much and immediately activated the transportation array. In the blink of an eye, he appeared at the peak of the Scarlet Sun sect. The next moment, He was so shocked by the scene in front of him that he could not move. How could this be? Chapter 109.
Blood.
The ground was covered in bright red blood. It dyed the entire square on the mountain peak red. The corpses of his fellow disciples were everywhere. Some were new disciples, some were nascent soul uncle masters, and some were even soul formation elders. All of them lay on the ground with their eyes wide open, as if they had seen something shocking before they died. They were no longer breathing. Their entire sect had been annihilated. He felt his entire body turn cold. His mind went blank as he stared in disbelief at the hellish scene in front of him. There's still one more. Suddenly, a voice as cold as ice sounded above his head. He didn't have time to raise his head. Before he could look up, an immense and irresistible pressure fell on him. His legs gave way, and his entire body was plastered to the blood-soaked ground. His internal organs ruptured, his meridians snapped, and his golden core was crushed. He opened his mouth and spat out blood. He could not move at all. He could only let his cultivation flow out of his body like blood. You're just an ant. That voice rang out again, this time with a condescending tone. The young man used the last of his strength to raise his head and look in that direction, only to see a white figure flying into the sky. Light swirled around the figure, making it look dreamy and illusory. That was immortal chi. It was actually an immortal.
Why?
Why did an immortal want to annihilate his entire sect? He was filled with questions, but he had no chance to answer them. His life began to flow out of him, and his vision dimmed. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared in his vision. Young man, are you all right? This voice was Shin. Miss Shin. Why was she back? Before he could be surprised, something was stuffed into his mouth. He felt his body warm up. The bleeding stopped, and his body regained some strength. What happened? He finally reacted and tried to push her away. Go. Hurry, leave this place. That person is not from this realm. He was here? Her expression darkened. She stood up immediately. When did he leave? Where did he go? He should be in the direction of Enchanting City. Seeing that she was about to chase after him, he immediately tried to stop her. Miss Shun, you can't beat him. Hurry and leave. The person in front of him had already disappeared. Don't go. Run. He instantly felt even more despair. That's an immortal. Before he could finish speaking, a white light flashed in front of him, and with a bang, a person fell to the ground in front of him. His robes were as white as snow, and his body was surrounded by remnants of immortal energy. It was none other than the immortal who had just flown away. However, just like the people on the ground, he was no longer breathing. Little brother, how are you? Are you still alive? Shunning tilted her head and squatted beside him again. She thought for a moment, then suddenly plucked a white plant from her feet and plucked a bunch of white flowers. G. The plant cried out a few times, feeling wronged. Make any more noise and I'll stew you. The plants were silent. She passed the flowers to him and said, Eat these and you'll feel better. I'm in a hurry, so I'll leave first. Oh. After saying that, she turned around and headed in the direction of Enchanting City. The young man's heart instantly warmed up, and he could not help but ask, May I know which sect Senior is from? The other party paused, then turned around and answered, Oh, I'm the sect master of Invincible Sect. After thinking for a moment, she added, If you have time, go and inform the other immortal sects to seek refuge in the demon realm first. With that said, her figure flashed and she disappeared again. Only then did the young man retract his gaze and look at the flower in his hand that was overflowing with spirit chi. The sect master of Invincible Sect. She's the #1 sword cultivator. So her real name is I Ching. Not far away, a certain Ing. Chu. Why does it feel like I've suffered a loss? Xian Yuan family. The entire city was desolate. The great array protecting the city had been broken, and there were broken walls everywhere. The originally clean and tidy ground was now stained red, and there were corpses of dead cultivators everywhere. Those who were in good condition could still see half of their corpses, but most of them did not even have their bones left. The originally bustling immortal city was now like a dead city. The only place that still had people was in front of the main hall of the Xian Yuan family. Xian Yuanyu led several traveling immortals to desperately hold up the defensive array. Inside the array were the hundreds of surviving disciples and citizens of the city. I Ching stood alone outside the array, sword in hand. His body was already covered in blood, but he still stood straight, not taking a step back. He looked up into the sky. There were 6 people standing in the air, all dressed in white, surrounded by immortal qi and glowing light. They looked down disdainfully, their eyes unmoved, as if they were looking at a group of dead things. Except for the immortal at the front. He frowned and looked angrily at I Ching below. He held his arm with one hand, and red liquid flowed continuously from his fingertips. It was obvious that he had been injured. I didn't expect that this realm would produce such an impressive sword cultivator. She can actually break through the immortal qi protecting her, one of them said teasingly. Yenyu, you've really failed miserably this time. The injured immortal's face darkened, and he looked at I Ching with even more fury. He laughed coldly and said, "Humph, I only broke through the immortal qi protecting my body. You're just a puny cultivator. Do you think you can defeat me?" As he spoke, he released the suppressive force of a golden immortal. I Ching's face darkened. He used his sword to support himself, and a hint of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Behind him, Xian Yuanyu and the others, who were holding up the array, spat out blood. Even the array was on the verge of collapsing. I Ching could feel how strong these immortals were. They could not even compare to the 5 people in the Immortal Ascension Pagoda. These people's strength was overwhelming. I Ching had used all his strength, but he had only broken through the person's immortal qi protecting him, and that was in a one-on-one situation. The others did not attack. They're just a bunch of ants. Aren't you all too slow? The person on the far right urged impatiently. All right, stop playing around. Just destroy them. We still have to hurry to other places to clean up. As he spoke, he raised his hand to conjure a spell. Immediately, immortal qi flowed from his body, and he was about to attack the crowd. One of the immortals standing at the very back suddenly grimaced. He stepped forward anxiously and grabbed him.
Wait.
Wan Su, why are you stopping me? The immortal turned back and glared at him unhappily. Wan Su paused, and something flashed across his eyes. After a while, he smiled and said, "Fellow immortal, it's rare for us to come down here. Is there a need to rush?" "No rush." The immortal snorted. "Master ordered us to clean up this world in 6 hours.
What, are you going to disobey?"
"No, of course not." Wan Su stiffened. He glanced at the people below and said, "I just feel that there's no need for a mystic immortal like you to personally deal with a few mere mortals. Just leave such trivial matters to us golden immortals."
You?
He laughed coldly. "It's been almost 15 minutes, and you can't even take down an ant that hasn't ascended. Leaving it to you bunch of trash is a waste of time. Indeed, golden immortals are golden immortals. Useless. You." Yu was so angry that his face turned red. He seemed to want to explode, but he thought of something and held it in. The immortal snorted and raised his hand to conjure a technique again. However, he was blocked by Wan Su again.
Wait.
Wan Su, what's going on with you today? The immortal's expression darkened. He was already angry. He thought of something and glanced at him suspiciously. "Speaking of which, you are the one who suggested that Yenyu act alone. Don't tell me that you want to let these people off because they're also core cultivators?" "I'm not," he immediately retorted. The immortal glanced at him and snorted coldly. "You better not. Don't forget Master's orders because of your birth. Not a single person in this world can be left alive." "Of course not." The corners of his mouth twitched. He looked down at the people below and said, "I just feel that this sword cultivator is an eyesore. He dares to block us and injure immortal Yenyu. I want to see where he gets his courage from." Why don't you leave this person to me? With that said, he did not wait for the other party to reply. He directly rushed over with his sword in hand, as if he could not wait to show his loyalty. I Ching felt the immortal pressure rushing towards him again. He gripped the sword in his hand tightly and activated all the spirit chi in his body. Just as he was about to fight with all his might, he suddenly heard a low voice.
Attack the right side of my waist.
Use the teleportation talisman.
Go.
Chapter 110. I Ching hesitated. Suspicious, he did not reply. The other party's attacks became fiercer and fiercer. Although they looked vicious, they always used up half of their immortal chi just as they were about to hit him. Without the support of immortal chi, all that was left was their understanding of swordsmanship. For a moment, the two of them were in a stalemate. Wan Su urged anxiously. Hurry, what are you waiting for? Attack my lower right side. I Ching frowned and sent a voice transmission. Why are you helping me? There's no time to explain. The other party sounded more anxious. I can't let you die here. Let's get out of here first. No way. I Ching rejected directly. He did not care why this person was suddenly helping him. If I leave, the hundreds of cultivators behind me will definitely die. You can't save them even if you stay here. Wan Su's voice trembled. 4 of the 5 people behind you are mystic immortals. You can't deal with them. Leave here and find your master. You know my master? I Ching was shocked.
Of course I know him.
Wan Su gritted his teeth. I'll tell you the truth. Actually, I'm Wan Su. What are you waiting for? Before he could finish, the mystic immortal behind him seemed to have noticed something. He suddenly said, You're taking so long to deal with a sword cultivator from the lower realm. A golden immortal is indeed a golden immortal. I don't have time to waste with you. With that said, he suddenly waved his hand. Immediately, a golden light shot straight in the direction of the crowd. I Ching was shocked. He immediately turned around and transformed his chi into a dragon. He charged directly at the golden light. With a dragon's roar, the golden light stopped in front of the defensive array. I Ching mobilized all the spirit chi in his body and waved it forcefully, trying to disperse the golden light. You overestimate yourself. The person snorted coldly. With a wave of his hand, another golden light shot out. This time it went straight for I Ching. It was too late to turn back and defend. However, the defensive array was right behind him. He could not retreat. The golden light was about to penetrate his body. Be careful. Wan Su panicked. He rushed forward and summoned the defensive array to block the second golden light. The Xian immortal's face darkened and he sneered at Wan Su. Wan Su, are you going to betray Master? His face instantly turned pale, and his body trembled. No, I'm not. Don't forget, the only reason you're still alive is because of the Lord's mercy. Otherwise, you would have entered the cycle of reincarnation a long time ago, and now you're actually pitying these ants. His eyes instantly turned cold, and he chuckled. Whatever, ants will be ants. You will never be able to become a true immortal. Since you insist on seeking death, I will fulfill your wish and clean up the sect while I am at it. No. Wan Su widened his eyes in horror. It was too late. The Xian immortal waved his hand at the people behind him and said, Clean them up quickly. Don't leave a single one alive. In the next instant, the 5 of them formed hand seals at the same time. 5 rays of golden light merged into one, bringing with them a world-destroying immortal pressure as they charged forward. Even Wan Su, who is a golden immortal, was forced to take several steps back. The defensive array that Xian Yuanyu and the others had set up shattered. Under the pressure of the immortal pressure, everyone fell to their knees like ants. Those with lower cultivation levels could not withstand the pressure. Blood flowed out of their eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. Their cultivation levels dissipated, and their bodies began to crack under the immense pressure. Even I Ching could not stand steadily. The spirit sword in his hand broke into 2. The golden light was about to turn everyone into ashes. Suddenly, everything darkened. A figure appeared in front of I Ching, casually raising a hand to block the attack. The light with the power to destroy heaven and earth stopped. It was like a piece of paper that was cut into millions of pieces, and the immortal pressure on everyone dissipated. Master. I Ching looked up in surprise. Thank goodness they made it in time. Hey, chef. She reached out with her other hand and patted his head. Very seriously, she praised. You did well. You've worked hard.
Leave the rest to me.
Yes, master. His tense nerves finally relaxed, and his whole body powerlessly sat on the ground. Behind him, Wan Su and the Xian Yuan family all heaved a sigh of relief. Suddenly, they felt the urge to cry. Finally. Who are you? The mystic immortal in the air was shocked. He looked down at the woman who had suddenly appeared. She actually managed to block the combined attack of the 5 of them with one hand. Even with his mystic immortal cultivation, he did not sense how she had appeared here. Shenning finally looked up at the 5 people in the air. She did not answer his question. Narrowing her eyes, she asked slowly, Who said just now, leave no one alive?
She paused.
Without waiting for an answer, she continued. All right, I'll grant you your wish. The 5 of them paused. Instantly, they felt a murderous aura filling the sky, rushing towards them. They felt as if they had fallen into an ice house. Their hearts froze. Subconsciously, they had the urge to run away. The mystic immortal suppressed the inexplicable panic in his heart. He laughed coldly and said, Humph, you're just a cultivator from the lower realm. You've learned some special skills and you dare to speak so arrogantly. Today, you dash dong. Before he could finish speaking, there was a loud thud. The other mystic immortal, who had been standing beside him, suddenly fell from the sky. He landed heavily on the ground, no longer breathing. Sigma, junior brother Hao. The mystic immortal was shocked. He turned to look at the woman in front of him. She was still standing in the same spot. Her clothes did not even move. What exactly is dong? Another sound rang out. Another immortal beside him was smashed to the ground.
Yenyu.
What exactly happened?
Dong.
The third one. He was already panicking. Looking at Shining, who was still standing in the same spot, he asked, What exactly did you do?
Dong.
The fourth one. In less than 4 breaths' time, he was the only one left in the air. Yet, he had no idea what had happened, let alone who had attacked. Fear rose in his heart. He widened his eyes at the woman who was not moving at all. Was she really a cultivator from the lower realm? What exactly are you? Before he could finish speaking, he felt a gust of wind pass by his ear. A lazy voice rang in his ear. It was clearly a gentle tone, but it sounded like a voice from hell. It's your turn. The next moment, he felt intense pain all over his body. His immortal bones were directly shattered. With a crash, he fell from the sky. He only understood when he lost consciousness. It was not that the woman did not move. It was because she was too fast. They did not even see her afterimage before the attack was over. This kind of terrifying strength was simply impossible to exist. In less than half a minute, the immortal from the upper realm who had forced the entire Xian Yuan family into a corner was defeated. It was so fast that they did not even have time to react. Xian Yuanyu felt like he was dreaming. He suddenly wanted to know how much great immortal Shen had held back when she came to the Xian Yuan family for a chat. I'm so tired. Shanning clapped her hands. Her body bent like a shrimp. She was back to her usual useless self. It was as if the word lazy was stuck on her body. Just as she turned to order food from Chef, she saw Wan Su beside him. Hey, there's another one. She forced herself to straighten her back and was about to walk over. Wait, exalted immortal. Wan Su was shocked. He immediately recovered from the shock of the rapid destruction of the immortal party. With a panicked expression, he explained, I'm with you. I'm a good citizen. Shenying's hand paused. She turned to the side. Chef? What was going on? Master, he was indeed helping me stall for time just now. I Ching nodded. After some thought, he added, but he came with the 5 immortals. I don't know him either. Oh. Shenying's eyes narrowed. How could you not know me? It's me, it's me. Wan Su pointed hard at his own nose and looked at Shunning anxiously. Exalted Immortal, we've met before. Have you forgotten? Look carefully. I came down to the lower realm to look for you. Chef, do you remember? I don't remember. Oh, then let's just destroy them. The corner of Wan Su's mouth twitched. His expression immediately turned bitter. No, Exalted Immortal. I'm really one of you. He suddenly thought of something. He raised his hand and conjured an invisibility spell. Only his lower body was hidden. With a serious expression, he said, It's me. I'm Floaty. The two of them. I'm Floaty Snow. Chapter 111. You're the immortal soul from the ancient immortal residence. I Ching paused. Then, understanding what he meant, I Ching glanced at him. Aren't you Bita? You remember? Wan Su was overjoyed. He nodded his head vigorously and said, Yes, yes, yes. That remnant soul is me. Bitao is my original name. I came to the lower realm to see the exalted immortal. Ever since he got his immortal soul back, he had been wanting to return to the Azure world to find her. Now he finally saw him. Wan Su, no. Bitao suddenly felt like crying. You don't know how many ways I've tried to. His nose turned sour, and he subconsciously wanted to hug her thigh. Just as he reached out, a green light flashed in front of him, and a green leaf stretched out from her thigh. With a slap, it slapped him hard in the face. A radish-shaped vegetation spirit split open from the middle and bared its sharp teeth at him.
Gee, get lost.
Ugly bastard, don't even think about stealing my thigh. Bitao. All right. Shunning reached out and pressed Radish back. She finally remembered Floaty. She stepped forward and said, That Floaty, explain what's going on. How many of you are there? Bitao suddenly remembered the matter at hand. He hurriedly said, Exalted Immortal, we have 15 people with us this time. 10 of them are Mystic Immortals and 5 are Golden Immortals. Apart from the 6 of us, the others went to the north and south. We have to hurry. Other than you, no one in the Azure world is a match for them, especially in the east where there are the most people. 7 people? Shunning suddenly interrupted him. Bitao paused. How did you know? Oh, I just came from the masochist's house, she said calmly. I'm done there.
Done?
That was way too fast. It hadn't even been an hour since they came to the lower realm, and they were wiped out so quickly. It seemed that his choice back then was correct. However, what the hell was the Shuddering Grace sect? Oh yes, what is the Day of Reharvest? Shunning suddenly asked. Bitao looked surprised. You know about the Day of Reharvest? She nodded. Why do you want to destroy the world? As soon as he said this, the surviving members of the Xian Yuan family gathered around him and looked at Bitao. This was indeed very strange. Judging from the tone and demeanor of those immortals just now, it was obvious that they were disdainful of the things in the lower realm. Then why did they spend so much effort to come here, and even wanted to kill everyone, not even sparing the children who were cultivating qi? It was a matter of course and merciless method. It was simply more ruthless than a devil cultivator. Bitao's face paled, and he seemed to have thought of something. He clenched his fists tightly by his side. After a moment of silence, he took a deep breath and finally found the courage to speak. The abode master of the Qing Tong immortal abode of the upper realm conducts a thorough cleansing of the 3 Azure realms every 100,000 years. It allowed all living beings to enter the cycle of reincarnation in the 3 realms and be reborn. The day of cleansing was called the Day of Reharvest. Including this time, this is already the 13th time Manor Master Sun Li has cleansed this realm. You've destroyed the world 13 times. Everyone gasped in shock and anger. I Ching stepped forward and asked, Why did he do that? This is a myriad of living beings. What were mortals in their eyes? Because the abode master is the master of this realm. Bitao's expression darkened. The entire three Azure Realms is a mystic realm created by the Abode Master using the Immortal Meridian. As the creator of this realm, the Abode Master can do whatever he wants with it. That's ridiculous. If he only wanted to create a mystic realm, why would he bring in a myriad of living beings? I Ching asked. Moreover, he had destroyed the world over and over again. Although immortals had the ability to create mystic realms, living beings were different. Only the Great Tao could create living beings. All living beings would eventually return to the cycle of reincarnation in the three realms. Bi Tao's frown deepened. He clenched his fists even tighter. That's because that immortal meridian, Shenning suddenly said. Bi Tao was shocked. His eyes widened as he looked at her. You knew. I could guess. Shenning frowned. That Abode Master did not use the Immortal Meridian to create the Azure world. He created this realm for the Immortal Meridian, right? That's right. Bi Tao nodded vigorously. The Immortal Meridian is hard to find. It's a treasure of the Immortal Realm. An Immortal Meridian can help the Abode Master become an exalted immortal, second only to the young Emperor. But the Immortal Meridian that the Abode Master obtained is incomplete. Although it is beneficial for cultivation, it is not enough to help the Abode Master advance to the next level. The only way is to nurture the Immortal Meridian. He paused for a moment before continuing, but the Immortal Meridian is formed by the accumulation of thick immortal qi. The immortal qi in the Qing Tong Immortal Abode is only enough for the immortals to cultivate normally. It is not thick enough to nurture the Immortal Meridian unless we borrow it from somewhere else. We borrow it from the cultivators of the lower realm, Shenning continued. Yes. Bi Tao took a deep breath and scanned the crowd. The Abode Master created the Azure world on the Immortal Meridian and brought in living beings. He wanted the cultivators of this realm to absorb the spirit qi of heaven and earth to increase their cultivation level. When the cultivators die, the spirit qi will naturally be used to nourish the Immortal Meridian. But isn't the Immortal Meridian formed from immortal qi? Xian Yuanyu could not help but ask. Spirit qi cannot compare to immortal qi, right? Indeed, it cannot. Bi Tao's tone changed. But there are millions of cultivators in the lower realm. Although spirit qi was not as thick as immortal qi, a little made a lot. Millions of cultivators nourished the Immortal Meridian faster than any other place in the immortal realm. So, I Ching's expression was as black as the bottom of a pot. The world is destroyed every 100,000 years so that all the cultivators' spirit qi can nourish this Immortal Meridian? Yes. Bi Tao nodded. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. All the living beings in the three Azure realms existed just to nourish the Immortal Meridian. No wonder the immortals started massacring the city without saying a word. No wonder this day was called the Day of Reharvest. Reharvest meant rebirth. And reharvest meant a bountiful harvest, right? Their bountiful harvest was their death. Were these the immortals of the upper realm? Was this the nature of this world? Everyone was instantly filled with anger, but there was nothing they could do. Don't worry. There is a limit to the number of people in the lower realm. The next time they send immortals down, it will be at least 1,000 years later. Once this day is over, we will be safe. But no one calmed down because of this. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Xian Yuanyu could not help but feel afraid. If not for Shenning, the immortals might have wiped out the entire three Azure realms, just like the previous 10 times. There was a dead silence in the room. Anyone would not feel good knowing that they were just a spirit qi tank raised by the immortals of the upper realm. It took Xian Yuanyu more than 10 minutes to recover from the truth of the apocalypse. Thank you, Sect Master Shen, for your help. What should we do next? Xian Yuanyu looked at Shenning. Yanran had already regarded her as the pillar of support for the entire upper Azure world. Even the traveling immortals and disciples behind him were looking at her expectantly. Shenning shook her head. Didn't Drifter say that everything would be fine after today? There's nothing for me to do here now. Do as you see fit. Xian Yuanyu nodded and thanked Shenning again. Then, he turned around and began to arrange for the post-disaster reconstruction work. I'm so tired. Shining turned around. Chef, let's go home. Yes, master. I Ching, who had finished regulating his breathing, took 2 quick steps forward and stopped the person in front of him. Master, the transportation array is this way. The 2 of them turned and walked toward the transportation array. Suddenly, they thought of something and waved their hands. Drifter, come with us. Yes, exalted immortal. The person who was still half invisible immediately floated over. Shun Ing walked into the transportation array. She had a vague feeling that she had forgotten something. Forget it, I'm too tired. I'll think about it later. A certain longworm from the E family. Why isn't the great immortal here yet? Epsilon 3. For all 3. Chapter 112. Invincible Sect. Halfway there, Lone Moon remembered that he had missed someone from another sect. He returned to fight some monsters. Now, all he could think about was recipes. I've exercised a lot today. Will Father Nyo agree to have supper? I wonder if he's awake. Just as he was hesitating about whether to go and take a look, he heard a weak voice from behind him. Exalted immortal. Bi Tao, who was surrounded by a large group of girls, looked around and shivered. He felt that these girls were looking at him strangely. It was as if they were too bright. Did he do something wrong? All the body cultivator disciples. Sect Master has brought back another immortal realm punching bag. Heartsuit, exalted immortal. Bi Tao could not help but call out again. Hadn't they already confirmed that he was on the same side? Please give me a hint. Shining turned back and was about to say something when Yu Hong rushed over. Sect Master, something has happened to Elder Lone Moon. Supper. Shun Ying's eyes widened. Let's go. Just as he took a step, he turned and picked up Floaty, before following Yu Hong to Father Nyo's room. Father Nyo was still unconscious. Not only that, but he looked even worse than before she left. His forehead was covered in sweat, and blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. Look, what's going on? Shunning let go of Floaty. Isn't this? Bi Tao's eyes widened. He took 2 steps forward and looked at the person on the bed. He just passed the tribulation of ascension?
Yes.
Shunning nodded. Bi Tao sucked in a breath of cold air and checked the pulse of the person on the bed. The more he looked, the uglier his expression became. His immortal bones have already been formed. Why is there no trace of immortal qi in his body? As he spoke, he sent some immortal qi into the person's body. Lone Moon's expression improved. In order to block the 83 bolts of lightning, I Ching explained. He used all the immortal qi in the lightning tribulation to block the last bolt of lightning. 83? Bi Tao was even more shocked. Then, what's with the extra lightning tribulation? He continued asking, if the cleansing of the Azure world was to nourish the immortal meridian, why did they stop everyone from ascending? Was it because they were afraid that the upper realm would discover the secret of the Azure world? Since even he knew about this, it meant that this was not a secret in the upper realm at all. Because of law. Bi Tao frowned. A moment later, he said in a low voice, although this place is called the Azure world, in the upper world, this is just a small mystic realm created by the Abode Lord. That's why no one can say anything about what he does with this place. But if someone ascends, it's different. He pointed to the sky and said, if someone in this realm breaks through and ascends, the heavenly Tao will send down a light of guidance, activating the laws of heaven and earth to guide them to the upper realm. Once someone ascended, this place would completely become a small world, equivalent to one of the 3,000 worlds. In that case, the entrance to the arcane realm controlled by the prefecture master will lose its function. Unless the realm gate is forcefully opened, even immortals from the upper realm will not be able to enter this place. So, in order to prevent the people of this world from ascending, I Ching's expression darkened. He added another lightning tribulation on top of the 9 lightning tribulation. Bi Tao nodded. That's right. The Abode Master ordered people to use heavenly thunder to destroy the immortal bones of those who ascended the immortal realm the moment they formed their immortal bones. in order to prevent him from activating the light of guidance, just like I did back then. Didn't you become an immortal? Yu Hong could not help but ask. Was it because of the immortal transformation pill? I Ching suddenly remembered. Yes. Bitao nodded vigorously. It was indeed because of this pill. I was a core cultivator. Back then, my immortal bones were broken, and I became a traveling immortal. That's why I've been researching ways to repair my immortal bones. After nearly 10,000 years, I finally managed to refine the immortal transformation pill just as I was nearing the end of my lifespan. Bitao's expression was solemn.
He seemed to be thinking about the past.
His body trembled slightly before he said, "When I came out of seclusion, my immortal bones were already formed, and the light of guidance was reduced to half. In order to deceive the heavenly Tao, Abode Master Sun Li extracted my life soul and sealed it in the pill room. He then chased it out of the azure world into a mystic realm." He took a few deep breaths before continuing. "He brought my body back to the immortal world with only 2 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls. He wanted to cut off my connection with the azure world. Because the life soul in the pill room was incomplete, its memories were in a mess. The only thing it could remember was the pill formulas. That was why it thought that it had died a long time ago.
So that's why.
No wonder he wanted to pass on the legacy to others. That was all he could remember. Exalted immortal. He turned to look at Shining and said solemnly, "Your fellow Taoist does not have any immortal qi in his body. I'm afraid he cannot activate the laws and attract the light of guidance. What's more, his immortal bones are already formed. If he doesn't hurry to the immortal world, I'm afraid. How do we get there?" Shining frowned. "There's an entrance to the immortal world in this world," Bitao said. "It's the one in the lower realm. But I don't think it's closed yet." "That one?" Shining opened the window and pointed to a spot in the sky. "It's closed. How could that be?" Bitao was shocked. "The day of reharvest is not over yet. Although the entrance has always been guarded by Earth Immortals, it shouldn't be." Xin Ying's figure flashed. A moment later, she reappeared. She waved her hand and threw a person out. "You mean this one?" "Bitao, why was the Earth Immortal guarding the entrance here?" "Sigma, for all, shouldn't he be at the eye of the array formation? Even mystic immortals could not break through that array formation. How could it be? What do we do? What do we do?" Bitao panicked. He was like an ant on a hot pan. "The Earth Immortal guarding the entrance is here. The Qing Tong Immortal Abode will know that something has happened in the azure world. They will definitely send other immortals down. And they will only send more than this time. Maybe the Abode Lord will come down personally. We're finished. How do we open the door?" Shining continued to ask. "Exalted immortal, why don't you understand?" Bitao was getting more and more anxious. "The entrance can only be opened from the immortal world. Even if it can be opened, it can't be opened now. No matter how powerful she was, she could not be more powerful than the Abode Lord, who was a perfected Stygian immortal. Although the azure world was only a small world, it was still a mortal world. It could not accommodate too many immortals. Usually, only Earth immortals could enter and exit the azure world at will. The others could only enter the azure world when the immortal meridian was at its strongest once every 1,000 years. The day of reharvest was one of those times. Bitao and Shining had thought that as long as they survived that day, they would not have to worry about the azure world being destroyed for at least 1,000 years. Perhaps they could think of another way. But now that the Earth Immortal guarding the entrance was here and no one was guarding it, the entrance would naturally close when the time was up. Someone in the immortal abode would definitely notice this. If the Abode Lord came down personally, we're finished. The entrance can only be opened from the immortal world? Of course. In that case, Shining glanced at the person on the bed again. Suddenly, she turned to I Ching and said, "Chef, why don't you ascend?" I Ching, Bitao, Yu Hong, all the disciples. Sigma, for all. Chapter 113. The Immortal World. At the entrance to the azure world, immortal chi surged. Light filled the sky and thunder rumbled. The overflowing immortal chi looked like it was about to transform into an immortal ascension stage. "What's going on?" asked the steward of the Qing Tong immortal abode. "Someone must have ascended from the azure world mystic realm," answered one of the immortals. "Someone ascended again. Wasn't there only one 4 hours ago?" Perhaps the opening of the entrance affected the immortal chi in the immortal world. From the looks of it, it could be another sword cultivator? When did so many sword cultivators appear in the azure world? Where are the earth immortals guarding the entrance? Why haven't they gone to deal with them? I don't know. The entrance is already closed. They must have left for some time. Ridiculous. The day of reharvest is such an important day, and he dares to leave without permission. I will arrange for other immortals to go and stop the ascension stage. Forget it. There were so many immortals descending. Someone will notice and rush over. But the tribulation lightning has already struck 78 times. "What?" the steward exclaimed. "Did none of the world-cleansing stage immortals go to stop them?" "No. Nonsense. Go and report this to the abode lord. The rest of you follow me to the entrance." He pointed at someone at random and led the other 5 mystic immortals towards the place where the immortal chi was surging. The immortal chi at the entrance was so thick that it was almost solid. Without the suppression of the earth immortals guarding the entrance, the immortal chi swirled around, and the immortal ascension stage began to take shape. The closed entrance to the azure world was already cracking. The steward landed on the ground and saw that the tribulation lightning had just struck 80 times. The last heavenly lightning had already formed and was about to strike the tribulation lightning cultivator below. Shocked, he immediately waved his hands to set up an array to suppress the immortal ascension stage that was about to take shape. He opened the entrance and entered the azure world. He quickly recited an incantation. Considering that the other party was a sword cultivator, he used 90% of his immortal force and struck out a purple heavenly lightning with a hint of red. It followed closely behind the last tribulation lightning. After striking, he did not take a closer look. He turned and joined the 5 behind him, about to seal the entrance to the immortal world that had been opened by the tribulation lightning tribulation. Just as he raised his hand to form a seal, the immortal next to him suddenly looked in his direction with a look of horror. "Steward E, behind you." The steward was taken aback. Before he could react, a red light flashed behind him. The heavenly lightning that he had just struck suddenly turned around and struck upwards. As if it had come to life, it struck one by one in a circle, wrapping around their waists like a whip. In the next moment, they felt their bodies sink, and a whooshing sound rang out beside their ears. Along with the steward, the few Xian immortals were pulled straight down the entrance, like a string of gourds. Without the suppression of the array formation, the immortal ascension stage instantly took shape. The golden light of guidance soared into the sky and instantly turned the entire Qing Tong immortal abode golden. Sun Li, who was sitting in the main hall, suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the golden light that had already shone into the hall. "Light of guidance? What's going on?" His voice was low and spread throughout the entire immortal abode. The Stygian immortal's immortal aura immediately enveloped a radius of 100 miles. "My lord." The immortal who had come to report the news had just arrived outside the hall. He quickly walked in and said nervously, "In the azure world there is a sword cultivator who has just ascended. Steward E has already brought people to suppress him. Perhaps they did not make it in time." "Humph. Ishio is getting more and more inattentive." Sun Li's expression darkened. He waved his hand, and a beam of dermic light flew out. In an instant, a huge array formation appeared in the sky, suppressing the spreading golden light. Then he ordered in a low voice, "Go to the reception hall and get a few people to destroy the immortal ascension stage. As for that ascended cultivator, we cannot let him enter the immortal world in one piece. Shatter his immortal bones, extract his life spirit, and seal it in the immortal world." "Yes." The immortal bowed and retreated. In less than half an incense stick's time, he tumbled back into the room. My lord, bad news. He's coming up. What? Sun Li was shocked. Even the reception hall could not stop the ascended cultivator from entering the immortal world? No, they could not stop him, but that's not a human. What nonsense is this? Sun Li frowned and his expression darkened. Why are you panicking? What exactly happened? With that, he cast a mind-cleansing spell. The immortal world. The immortal did not stop panicking. He pointed outside and said, Something terrible has come up. What's terrible?
Sun Li was about to ask.
Suddenly, the earth shook, and with a rumbling sound, cracks the width of a palm appeared on the ground. They spread in all directions, and even the main hall began to shake. Sun Li was shocked. In a flash, he flew out of the hall and stood upright in the air. It was only then that he realized that starting from the newly formed immortal ascension stage, the entire Qing Tong immortal abode began to crack like a broken mirror. The original immortal palace residence had been toppled. Hundreds of immortals flew out one after another. The golden light that was originally only one beam began to seep out from the cracks, covering the entire immortal realm. The entire world was illuminated by the golden light. What exactly was going on? The golden light around them grew brighter and brighter. The suppression array that he had set up had long been broken and could no longer be suppressed. Sun Li's eyes widened. Before he could figure out what was happening, the immortal who came to report suddenly pointed to the center and said, Master, that thing is coming up. He turned to look and saw that the ground had already collapsed, leaving behind only cracks. In the center of the Qing Tong immortal abode, a piece suddenly protruded upwards. It grew taller and taller, as if something huge was burrowing out from below. The ground shook even more violently. With a loud rumble, gravel flew all over the sky. A huge object broke out from the center of the ground and flew more than 100 feet into the sky. With a loud bang, it landed firmly on the original Qing Tong immortal abode, causing the ground to shake again. Suddenly, a lush green field appeared in front of them. What did they see? The azure world had ascended a spirit mountain. Before they could react, a lazy voice suddenly sounded. Well, which one of you is the Stygian immortal Sun? Sun what again? Sun Li. A voice reminded them. Oh, yes, Sun Li. Only then did everyone realize that there were 3 people standing side by side on the peak of the mountain. There were 2 men and 1 woman. The one who spoke was the woman in the middle. Who is Sun Li? Shunning asked again. Perhaps they were shocked by the spirit mountain's ascension. The immortals in the sky subconsciously turned to look at the person in the middle. Looks like it's you. Xinying's eyes narrowed slightly. Then, she looked at Sun Li. Well, I came up to tell you something. From today onwards, she suddenly took a step forward and said word by word. In the name of freedom, the azure world is independent. Chapter 114. Sun Li ignored Xining and looked at I Ching. His eyes widened. You've successfully ascended. The immortal meridian, shocked, he subconsciously tried to conjure a seal to open the entrance to the azure world, only to find that he had completely lost contact with the mystic realm that he could have easily opened. His face immediately darkened. He was so angry that his face contorted. The immortal meridian that he had nurtured for hundreds of thousands of years, the azure world that he had painstakingly created, the azure world that he had expended his cultivation to bring in all the living beings, had actually become one of the 3,000 mortal realms. He had completely lost contact with it.
Damn it!
Mere ants from the lower realms dare to destroy my secret realm and sever my immortal meridian. His eyes turned bloodshot as he glared at I Ching. Do you think you'll have nothing to worry about after ascending to the immortal realm? If I don't allow it, even if you become immortals, you can forget about living forever. He gestured to the people behind him and said through gritted teeth, Crush the bones and souls of everyone on this peak. As for that sword cultivator who damaged my immortal meridian, this seat will deal with him personally. As soon as he finished speaking, immortal chi erupted from his entire body. He summoned his immortal artifact and charged forward. The immense amount of immortal chi around him caused even the immortals beside him to be shaken away. The immortal pressure was no longer restrained and was pressing down on the other side. Just as the sword in his hand was about to stab the other party, suddenly his hand tightened, and the figure that had just rushed out was pulled back. The woman who had just shouted had appeared beside him at some point and was smiling at him inexplicably. "I'm sorry, I was the one who came up with the idea of ascension. You've got the wrong person to settle the score with," she said slowly. "If you want to settle the score, I'll cooperate with you." After returning to the immortal realm, Bitao spent an entire hour in a daze. As for Xinying's idea of using ascension to open the door to the immortal realm, he was vehemently against it at first. Wasn't that courting death? Let's not talk about whether the Qing Tong immortal abode would discover that all the immortals from the lower realm had perished by the time they arrived. The upper realm would never allow anyone to complete the Ascension Thunder Tribulation. They would try their best to destroy the immortal ascension stage. Therefore, it was impossible for him to ascend. But he really succeeded. After the 81st Lightning Tribulation, the Lightning Tribulation imposed by the upper realm was something that even he could not withstand. Xinying casually grabbed it and effortlessly caught it in her hands. That's right, capture. That was a lightning bolt, not a whip or an artifact. Even now, he still couldn't figure out how he had managed to grab hold of this formless and formless lightning. Not only that, but with just a flick of her hand, she pulled down a bunch of Xian immortals from the sky and easily crippled their immortal bones. One of them was even the manager of the immortal abode. How could this be possible? He simply didn't dare believe his eyes, and everything that happened next overturned his understanding of the word powerful. Sect leader, you and the two elders can ascend in peace. We will definitely work hard to cultivate and come to the upper realm to look for you as soon as possible. Yu Hong looked at the descending light of guidance and was both happy and reluctant to part. She took a deep breath and held back her tears as she said goodbye. The eyes of the disciples behind him also reddened. He opened his eyes wide and stared at Xinying, not daring to blink. It was as if he wanted to carve her image into his heart. Xinying nodded.
Goodbye.
When I'm not around, all of you have to be careful. She nodded vigorously. Sect leader, you have to take care of yourself too. After we ascend, we will continue to help you clean your room.
What?
Clean, Xinying paused.
She seemed to have thought of something.
Suddenly, she stepped forward and grabbed Yu Hong's hand. With a serious expression on her face, she said, I think that we don't even have a visa in the immortal Azure realm. It's really inconvenient for us to stay in touch. Why don't we emigrate together? Bitao didn't understand what she meant by emigrating, but he watched as Xinying suddenly jumped to the realm gate in the sky. Then, she expanded the realm gate that was only the size of a person by a few hundred times. She did it with her bare hands then. She jumped down from the invincible sect and kicked the entire sect, which was enveloped by the light of guidance, up into the upper realm. It was really a kick. She didn't even give it a second kick. By the time he reacted, the entire invincible sect had already turned the Qing Tong immortal abode into a pile of rubble. In the immortal realm, he had seen countless immortals who ascended. It was not uncommon for them to bring people with them, as long as they could withstand twice the amount of lightning tribulation. Some of them ascended with their Dao partners, some with their children, some with their masters, and some with their friends, but he had never seen anyone bring an entire sect with them. And it wasn't just people either. They even brought their own territory. Bitao felt that his common sense was being put to the test. He must be dreaming. Yes, that must be it. It was normal to see unimaginable things in dreams. So compared to bringing their own territory and raising their whole sect to immortality, there were hundreds of immortals in the Qing Tong immortal abode. It was very normal for them to be wiped out in less than 5 minutes. As for Stygian immortal Sun Li, yes, he was the first to fall. Straight face, she became so powerful that even an immortal emperor would find it hard to defeat her, much less a Stygian immortal like Sun Li. At least, he had never heard of an immortal emperor who had the ability to tear the realm gate apart with their bare hands. Unless suddenly, he turned around and slammed his palms on the table. Exalted immortal.
Huh.
Shunning jumped. She looked down at his hands and frowned. Are you a divine being? Other than the divine beings who are more powerful than immortals, no one else had such power. Are you crazy? The corner of Xinying's mouth twitched. She raised her chopsticks and knocked them against Bitao's hands. My dishes. Bitao paused. Only then did he realize that his hands had landed on 2 bowls of food. The 2 dishes were now a mess. Master, do we need to deal with this disrespectful person? I Ching summoned his sword. Wait, I didn't do it on purpose. Bitao's face paled. He quickly took a step back. I'll pay for it. I have immortal stones. He immediately took out his bag. Xinying nodded. I Ching kept his sword. Yes, Father Niu had his first investment in the immortal world. Exalted immortal, are you really not a divine being? Bitao did not give up. He looked her up and down. That's not right. He had clearly heard from the steward that a divine race had come to the Azure world hundreds of thousands of years ago. That cowardly Sun Li was afraid that it would discover the truth about the Azure world. That was why, for the past hundreds of thousands of years, apart from the Earth immortals guarding the gate to prevent people from the lower realms from ascending, no one was allowed to enter the Azure world. They even delayed the day of reharvest by a few thousand years. Only after confirming that the person had left the Azure world did they reactivate the day of reharvest. He had thought that the divine being had not left, and that it was exalted immortal Shun himself. Bitao was even more confused now. Lone Moon, who had finally woken up, felt the immortal chi around him the moment he woke up. It was obvious that he had ascended to the immortal realm. But this familiar room, the familiar furnishings, and the sect disciples who passed by and greeted him, what the hell? Wasn't he supposed to be the first person in Invincible sect to pass the Ascension Tribulation before a certain cheat and chef? Why did the entire sect, including the land, ascend to the immortal realm when I woke up? Damn it, give me back my sense of superiority. For all, ngun go. Chapter 115. Xinying, hurry up and tidy up the house after you finish eating. Lone Moon rushed in and said to a certain foodie who was eating, I've already made the arrangements. Later, Yuhan will bring some disciples over to help you move your things to the West Hall. You'll be staying there from now on.
Huh?
Xinying paused.
Why?
Why did he have to move all of a sudden? It was so troublesome. Isn't there an immortal mansion at the foot of the mountain? I've just looked. The position of your house is just right. If we set up an array and dig down, we can reach the center of the immortal abode. Why does it have to go straight to the immortal mansion? Wasn't it already flattened? What else could it be? Of course it was to pick up scraps. Don't you usually loot for monsters? That makes sense. Lone Moon rolled his eyes at her, his face full of resentment. I say, you're a sect master after all. Can't you put more effort into the sect? Don't you know that after ascending, all the magic tools, spirit stones, and elixirs in the lower realm can't be used? Now there are so many people from Invincible sect in the upper world. If he didn't pick up the leftovers, would he be waiting to starve? And he turned his head and looked to the right. Who is this guy? Where did you pick it up from? Can you lessen the burden on the sect? Bitao, this is floaty. I don't care what you're talking about. Throw it back where you picked it up from. Lone Moon's heart was filled with frustration. Not only did he wake up to find that the entire sect had ascended, all the wealth he had accumulated over the years had actually become useless. Now that he was back to square one, he was about to go crazy from anxiety. However, the person who should be the most anxious was still sitting here eating. The sect doesn't have the money to support idlers now. Ahem, that. Fellow immortal, I am Bitao. We met at the Mystic Realm before. Bitao coughed awkwardly and explained his situation. You're the immortal soul that gave me an outdated inheritance? Can you not mention the word outdated? Lone Moon glanced at him and seemed to have thought of something. His eyes lit up. With a turn of her hand, She plucked the radish from her thigh and stuffed it into his arms.
Perfect.
Since you intend to stay an invincible sect, you should contribute to the sect. It's time to test your ability. Take it with you and refine more immortal pills. Refine whichever is more expensive.
Gee.
Radish stared blankly at Bitao. Then it made a clear sound. Pooey. Another ugly bastard. Bitao, did the people of Invincible Sect all make full use of their resources? Lone Moon continued to look at Shining. Shining, what are your plans for the sect? Plans? Shining paused. Don't tell me you don't have any plans at all? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. The veins on his forehead were about to explode. You should at least have a plan, right? Should I stay here, or find another place? What about the new disciples in the sect? Don't pretend. When I fainted, didn't you think everything through? You've even solved the problem of destroying the world. Hurry up and use your brain. Shining frowned. It was tiring to use her brain. A moment later, she patted Lone Moon's shoulder and said seriously, Father Nyo, I have faith in you. With Father Nyo around, why would she need her brain? Throw it away. Get lost. Lone Moon's expression darkened. I'm not your nanny. Don't say I didn't warn you. We know nothing about the immortal realm. On the surface, the problem of the Azure world has been solved. But Sun Li has been in the immortal realm for so many years. Who knows if any of his relatives or friends will come looking for him? I'm afraid. You don't have to worry about that. Bitao stepped forward and said, the Qing Tong immortal abode belongs to Chu Shuang City and is located at the edge of the city, where the immortal qi is thin. What's more, although Sun Li's immortal meridian is no secret, he doesn't want too many people to know that he's using living beings to nourish his immortal meridian. That's why he doesn't interact with other immortals. All we have to do is register our sect in Chu Shuang City and make offerings on time. Then, Chu Shuang City will not interfere with the private fights between immortals. Make offerings? Lone Moon frowned. Explain. What do you mean? Bitao nodded. Then, he explained the situation in the immortal realm to Lone Moon. All in all, the immortal abode they were in now is just a small, unremarkable place in the immortal realm. We are now in the Fengtsong continent, in the country of Chonglan, and in Chu Shuang City under Chongyan Immortal Prefecture. Any immortal who has ascended to the immortal realm can set up an immortal abode and accept disciples. There are thousands of immortal abodes in Chu Shuang City. The Qing Tong immortal abode is one of them. The entire Chu Shuang City belongs to the city lord. If you want to set up an immortal abode here, you have to offer a certain amount of immortal stones to the city lord every year. There's an immortal meridian under Chu Shuang City. The closer you are to the city, the thicker the immortal qi. Although the Qing Tong immortal abode is a first-class immortal abode, it's located far away from the city. That's why it doesn't offer many immortal stones every year. What about the Stygian immortal you mentioned? Lone Moon asked. The immortal realm is the same as the mortal realm. We also need to raise our cultivation level, Bitao continued. There are 8 big realms in total. They are Earth Immortal, Golden Immortal, Mystic Immortal, Stygian Immortal, and Exalted Immortal. Most people who have just formed their immortal bones and ascend to the immortal realm are Earth Immortals. Only Stygian Immortals can become emperors. Emperors are divided into young emperors, immortal emperors, and celestial emperors. Once you become emperors, you can build your own country. The king of Chonglan is immortal Emperor Guyu. Celestial emperors are above immortal emperors. They are the true masters of a continent. There are 10 celestial emperors in the immortal realm. Each of them occupies one of the 4 seas and 6 continents. You mean to say? Shining said as she ate. We're just a small mountain village? As long as we pay our taxes on time, no one cares who lives here. You can say that. Bitao nodded. Lone Moon heaved a sigh of relief. After thinking for a moment, he continued, those who form their immortal bones are Earth Immortals. What will happen to the disciples who have not undergone the lightning tribulation of immortal ascension without immortal bones? Don't worry, fellow immortal. This is easy to solve. Bitao explained, As long as they soak in the immortal transformation pool, the water will wash away their mortal bodies and form their immortal bones. However, their current cultivation levels are not high enough to withstand the power of becoming immortals. At the very least, they will have to wait until their cultivation levels reach the nascent soul stage before they can enter the pool. Where is the immortal transformation pool? Lone Moon asked. Fellow immortal, you have misunderstood. The water in the immortal transformation pool is actually water condensed from immortal chi. Just dig a pool and set up an immortal gathering array. The immortal chi in the immortal realm is denser than spirit chi. What's more, there won't be any lightning tribulation in the lower realm. These disciples will only need a few decades to become Earth immortals. Lone Moon frowned. They would be able to ascend in just a few decades. He had worked so hard for hundreds of years. Now that he was back to square one, his heart ached even more. Great Immortal Shin, we have to go to Chu Shuang City to register ourselves during the next offering ceremony. That way, Invincible Sect will be considered an official immortal sect here. When is the next offering ceremony? It has always been at the beginning of March. He counted on his fingers and suddenly paused. His eyes widened and he said, I think it will be tomorrow. Shit, why didn't you say so earlier? He turned and rushed out. Soon, he returned with tens of disciples. Pointing to the side hall, he said, Quick, don't worry about it anymore. Dig as hard as you can. Don't miss a single immortal stone. Shining. Chapter 116. Chu Shuang City. Invincible Sect. The immortal in charge of registration looked at the document in his hand, then at the three people in front of him. Finally, he could not help but ask, You really want to start a sect? Yes. Just you two Earth immortals and, The immortal glanced at Shining, who was beside him. He could not tell what her cultivation level was. His eyes widened, and his face was filled with the words, Are you stupid? Although it was not rare to start a sect, they had to hand over at least 200 superior-grade immortal stones every year. This amount of immortal stones was not much to a sect, but to ordinary cultivators, it was a lot of money. That was why only those who had a rich family background or a strong enough backer would do this. What's more, the person who started a sect was usually at least a mystic immortal. Of the people in front of him, 2 were obviously Earth immortals who had just ascended. There was still the aura of the lightning tribulation on them. The other was not even an Earth immortal. It was obvious that he had been brought to the upper realm. It was just these 3 people, yet they wanted to establish a sect. Could it be that they had too many immortal stones, making them feel uncomfortable? Are you sure?
He asked again.
The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He forced himself to nod again. Yes. He took out a bag of superior-grade immortal stones and handed it over. Thank you, fellow immortal. The immortal took the immortal stones and looked at them as if they were idiots. Then, he picked up the completed document, conjured a seal, and muttered something. With a shake of the paper, the lines of words immediately flew up from the paper and directly into a huge immortal wall behind him, disappearing into it. Then, a light flashed and the name, Invincible Sect, appeared on the stone wall. It was the same as the names of the other immortal abodes, occupying a small space. All right, remember to come once a year, the immortal reminded them. Then, he added, if you run out of immortal stones, you can come and cancel it at any time.
Thank you.
Lone Moon bowed politely. Then, he pulled Shining and I Ching out of the door. This was the first time in his 2 lifetimes that he was facing a financial crisis. He had thought that the Qing Tong Immortal Abode would be able to support so many immortals. But when he dug underground, he found out that Sun Li was just a pauper. All the immortal stones in the Immortal Mansion's secret vault added up to less than 1,000 immortal stones, which was only enough to pay taxes for 2 years. They did not know how Sun Li, the prefecture master, had managed to secure his position in the upper realm. Most likely, all of his immortal stones were spent on nurturing his immortal meridians. Lone Moon felt a slight headache. Although there were many people in the upper realm this time, they were all level 0 smurfs. No one had the skills to earn money. Even the priceless spirit herbs in the sect were nothing in front of the immortal world filled with immortal herbs. He had hoped that Bitao, an alchemy immortal, would be of some use. In the end, he found out that his pill concocting skills could only be considered entry-level in the celestial world. Only the disciples in the sect could eat the pills that were slightly effective. Forget about selling them for immortal stones. Even if he gave them away for free, no one would want them. It was urgent. He had to find a way to earn money. He looked around. Even though Chu Shuang City was just a small celestial city, it covered a vast area. It was several times larger than the cities of the aristocratic families in the lower bound. As long as he looked carefully, he would definitely be able to find a business opportunity. Let's split up here. He casually scanned the streets, then turned to the person beside him and made arrangements. I Ching, you're more familiar with refining weapons. Go and find out about the situation of the immortal weapons here, as well as the prices of some materials, the sales model, and so on. I Ching nodded. Leave the rest to me. Later, we'll compare and see which one is more profitable. We'll gather in front of the city gates in 2 hours. Shunning will follow. Lone Moon subconsciously turned to look, only to find that there was no one beside him. There was a huge empty space in the middle. The person who had been following him a moment ago had disappeared. Where is she? I Ching. Holy shit. How did that person with a poor sense of direction suddenly disappear between the two of them? In a dark alley 3 streets away, more than 10 men in black were squatting in the corner of the alley, avoiding the crowd. The leader of the group instructed in a low voice, "When the sky turns dark, we'll act according to plan. Remember, our goal is to find someone. Once we find her, we'll leave immediately." Everyone nodded. The city lord's abode is heavily guarded. This is a map. Remember the location you're searching for. The man's palm moved. Instantly, a virtual image of a map appeared in his hand. He raised his hand and paused in front of everyone. Listen to my signal. Do you remember? I don't. Shunning raised a hand weakly. The man was stunned. He turned and glared at her. He moved the map closer to her and said unhappily, "You can't even remember this. Look carefully and remember. Who on earth pulled you into this operation?" "You pulled me here." She looked at the black clothes she was wearing. Just now at the door, he was the one who pulled her away. The man was stunned. He glanced at her, as if trying to remember when he had met such a person. But he couldn't remember. He didn't mind. He pointed to a spot on the map and said, "Here, you go in from here. The person should be in the side courtyard. Don't go to the main courtyard. The people there are not people we Earth immortals can handle." "Oh," she nodded. And then, "Remember, don't alert anyone." The man repeated, "After you find the person, retreat. Everyone meet at the Black Forest outside the city. There will be people there to receive you." "Yes," everyone replied in a low voice. The leader looked at the darkening sky and said, "Time's up." Then he conjured a seal with both hands. In a short while, a teleportation array appeared under everyone's feet. The scenery in front of them flashed. In the next moment, they appeared in a courtyard. The leader gave each of them an immortal talisman. "This can hide your aura. Those below the Stygian immortal level will not be able to detect you. Let's go." Everyone nodded, and their figures flashed as they disappeared on the spot. Shining. Who exactly are we looking for? Should I cooperate with them first? She looked around blankly and randomly chose a direction. Just as she was about to leave, someone pulled her back.
"Wait, come back."
The leader pulled her back and pointed to the right. "You're this way. What's going on? Didn't you look at the map several times? Remember, don't alert anyone." Actually I'm not. I'm not one of you." Shunning was about to explain. The man's expression suddenly changed. He interrupted her and said, "Someone's coming. Stick the talisman and leave." With that said, his figure flashed and disappeared. Shunning. She could vaguely see the flames of Father Nyo's anger. She looked down at the black clothes she was wearing. She seriously thought about wearing something brighter next time. That would make her look less like the work clothes of a criminal gang. Of course, the most important thing now was, where was this? What happened to the gang? Did they just take people, but not bring them along? Shinning sighed and turned to walk out of the arched door on the left. Forget it. I'll look for them myself. Hopefully Father Neo would not deduct her food expenses. She thought about what that group of people said just now. It seemed that as long as she did not alert, "Who are you?" Just as she stepped through the door, a childish voice suddenly sounded. With a swoosh, dozens of swords made of immortal chi stabbed into the ground in front of her. Shunning. In the next moment, she picked up the talisman in her hand and pressed it on her chest. The newcomer. Sticking an aura-concealing talisman now? Do you think I'm blind? Chapter 117. Who are you? What are you trying to do by barging into the City Lord Manor? With a flick of his hand, an immortal sword flew up and stopped less than 2 fingers wide in front of Shunning. He said sternly, "Speak." Air. Shunning paused. Would you believe me if I said I was lost? Lost in someone else's manor? The man frowned and snorted. Humph. You're dressed in black and you're an earth immortal who just ascended. Don't think I don't know why you're here. This was really just an ordinary black robe. I advise you to leave quickly. Don't even think about doing anything to the Heavenly Tower. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Heavenly Tower? Shunning paused and looked behind him. Indeed, there was a tall building. It was pitch black and seemed to blend in with the night sky. If one did not look closely, one would not be able to see it. It's not easy for you to cultivate, and you've just ascended. As long as you surrender, the City Lord will be lenient towards you, the man said in a low voice, releasing his immortal pressure. Shunning tilted her head, but did not reply. She glanced behind him and suddenly said, "Well, do you know where the door is? Are you still thinking of escaping?" The man frowned and glared at her. There are many experts in the City Lord Manor. You'll be taken down before you even reach the front yard. Oh, if you understand, you'd better.
Wait.
What are you doing? Before he could finish speaking, the person opposite him suddenly walked straight toward him. The man's face paled and he shouted anxiously, "Stop right there. Don't come any closer. Do you hear me?" Shunning ignored him. She stepped out of the ground full of immortal swords as if they were nothing. She walked towards him and passed right through his body. Suddenly, the tall and handsome man's figure dissipated like smoke. But the voice did not stop. He shouted anxiously, "Stop right there. Don't go near the Heavenly Tower.
Do you hear me?
I say." Shunning did not listen to him. Instead, she walked towards a tall building and pushed the door open. She said to the little figure sitting inside, "Little friend, next time you lie to people, remember to disguise your voice." It was a strong young man in his 20s, but he had a childish voice, and it came from behind. She gave this dubbing a 0. You. Sitting cross-legged in the middle of the room, the blue-clothed child's face was full of panic. His little hand trembled as he pointed at her in disbelief. "How did you break through the defensive array outside the door, and my phantom?" Shunning was stunned for a moment. Putting aside the fact that the phantom had failed, was there such a thing as a defense array? "I say, little friend." She walked straight in and saw that the child was trying to crawl back in fear. She couldn't help but reach out and pull him back. "Don't be afraid. Auntie just wants to ask you for directions."
Tell me where the door is.
"You?" The child's eyes widened, and he glanced at her suspiciously. "Are you really just asking for directions?"
Yes.
She nodded seriously to show that she was not a strange auntie. "If you're willing, you can also tell me the direction of the city gate." You're not going to catch me?" The child was even more confused. His little face was full of surprise. "Why would I catch you?" She spread her hands. The child was even more shocked. "You really aren't here to take me away?" "Yes." She nodded hard and added, "I'm quite poor. I can't afford to raise a child for the time being." "Really? Really? I promise in the name of Ultraman. Is that okay? Tell me where the door is?" What was Ultraman? The child was stunned for a moment. He let down his guard and glanced at her again before saying slowly, "This is the side courtyard at the back of the City Lord Manor. Behind it is Immortal Slaying Cliff. There's no exit. If you want to leave, you can only go through the front courtyard."
Oh.
She nodded. "Thank you, little friend." She was about to get up. "Wait." The child suddenly pulled her back. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "Well, you'd better go out later. My father and grandfather are in the front courtyard subduing demons. If you go out from here, they'll think you're an accomplice of the demon race and kill you together." He looked at her worriedly. He suddenly thought of something and immediately retorted, I'm only reminding you because you're not particularly bad." "All right, thank you." Shunning smiled and reached out to rub his head. She thought for a moment and reminded him, "Well, there are more than 10 people outside. They're dressed in the same black as me. They're real human traffickers. For safety's sake, you'd better hurry to the front courtyard to find your father and grandfather." "There are people in the side courtyard." The child was shocked. "Are they all Earth Immortals?" I think so," she said, completely unreadable. "No wonder they can come in here." The array formation in the courtyard was targeted at Immortal Chi. The Earth Immortals who had just ascended still had some spirit Chi. The Immortal Chi was not thick, so they could enter here without being detected by the array formation. "Why don't you come with me?" she suggested. The child's expression darkened. Even the light in his eyes dimmed. He pointed to his feet, feeling wronged. "I can't leave this array formation." "Array formation?" She looked down. Indeed, there was an array formation less than a meter in diameter where the child was sitting. If she did not look closely, she would not be able to see it. "My grandfather set up a defensive array formation in Zhongguang Building. Even Earth Immortals would not be able to enter this building easily." He looked proud. After thinking for a moment, he added, "You don't count." "Once the matter in the front courtyard is settled, they'll—" Before he could finish speaking, the ground suddenly shook. There was a loud boom from the right, like the sound of something exploding. Shan-Ing subconsciously stood up and looked outside, only to see that a sky full of black fog had suddenly appeared outside the courtyard, continuously surging towards them. In less than a moment, the area in front of them was pitch black. Even the moonlight could not be seen. The black chi squeezed in through the gaps in the door and the windows, bringing with it a bone-chilling cold. The temperature of the entire room dropped. The ground shook even more violently. There were signs that the building was going to collapse. Shan-Ing could not help but widen her eyes.
What a huge fog.
"I say, little Peng." Instinctively, she wanted to warn the child behind her, but found that his face had suddenly turned pale. Large beads of sweat were dripping from his forehead, as if he was suffering from some kind of pain.
"What's going on?"
"Little friend, are you all right? Don't scare me." The child's expression became more and more painful. His entire body was curled up into a ball. Blood kept seeping out of his body as he screamed in pain. Just as she was about to carry him, the array formation under his feet suddenly lit up. A pillar of light shot up into the sky. It broke through the roof, and the entire house collapsed. The light around him grew brighter and brighter. Suddenly, the entire night sky was lit up. Shan-Ying's heart skipped a beat. That this child's parents wouldn't beat her up, would they? Chapter 118. Inside Chu Shuang City. "Have you found her?" Lone Moon asked. "She's not in the west." I Ching shook his head. "I'll go to the east." "Forget it." Lone Moon pulled him back. "You know that your master has an invisibility attribute. Unless she takes the initiative to look for us, it won't be easy for us to find her." "But master doesn't know the way?" I Ching reminded him. The corner of his mouth twitched. For the 101st time, he wanted to beat someone up.
"There's no other way now. We can only wait and see."
"Wait." I Ching hesitated. "Wait for what?" "Wait for something to happen." Lone Moon gritted his teeth. "Don't you know what kind of person your master is? Wherever she is, nothing good will happen. Maybe now." Rumble, before he could finish speaking, There was a loud noise from the east. The whole of Chu Shuang City shook. Large amounts of black qi suddenly appeared out of nowhere and covered the entire East City. Master's aura is coming from that direction. I Ching was delighted. He flew over on his sword. Indeed. Lone Moon frowned. He turned to look east. He knew it would be like this. He had no choice but to follow. He saw many immortals flying out from that direction, their faces filled with fear. They cried out as they flew. Demonic qi, such strong demonic qi. Yes, the direction of the City Lord residence. The demons are attacking the City Lord residence. City Lord residence. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. 10,000 horses galloped through his heart. It's the City Lord residence. That foodie has another name, discomfort if he doesn't cause trouble, right? He actually went to the City Lord residence. The two of them flew all the way to the east of the city. From afar, they saw immortals fighting in an immortal residence. There was light from spells everywhere. These people looked to be at least as strong as the two of them, especially the one in the middle. The immortal qi on his body was several times stronger than Sun Li's. He was fighting with a person wrapped in black qi. That person seemed to be invisible. No matter what the other party attacked, they could not hit him. Moreover, he hid in the black qi from time to time. The black qi was getting thicker. They were just at the edge, but they already felt uncomfortable. Help, I Ching said, and rushed in directly. Lone Moon gritted his teeth and followed them in. The sword qi in his hand immediately swept towards the black fog, forcing it back several feet. He pulled out an azure-robed immortal, who was about to be swallowed by the black fog, and retreated back into the protective array formation. You are. That person was stunned and looked at the two of them in surprise. After the demonic aura appeared, everyone except the people from the City Lord's mansion rushed to fly out. He didn't expect that someone would rush in to help. Although they were only earth immortals, their sword qi could repel the demonic qi. Could it be, before that person could ask in detail, the devil qi surged up again? He had no choice but to join the battle again. He dispersed the wind blades formed by the devil qi and prevented the devil qi from destroying the defensive array formation. However, this couldn't go on. Not long after, the immortal fighting the Black Shadow was struck by a strand of demonic energy and fell to the ground. Ancestor! Everyone exclaimed. His entire left shoulder was instantly corroded by the devil qi, revealing the bones. He immediately cut off his entire left hand with a sword, then performed a hand seal to stop the endless flow of blood from the wound. However, with this delay, the Black Shadow had already rushed over and was about to pounce on that person. Suddenly, a strand of sword qi struck the Black Shadow. The Black Shadow trembled, let out a muffled grunt, and retreated in an instant. The person fighting the Black Shadow was shocked. He looked down at the few drops of black blood on the ground, which still carried demonic qi. He looked at I Ching in surprise and asked, How did he hit the demon? I Ching seemed to understand what he wanted to ask. As he blocked the black qi, he replied, My master said that the demon is not invisible. The key is speed. That person was stunned for a moment, then he said, Thank you. As he said this, his figure flashed, and he flew towards the Black Shadow again. This time, he no longer defended passively. Instead, he attacked as fast as he could. Indeed, the demon could no longer hide in the black qi and was forced to retreat. Just as he was about to take down the demon, a white light suddenly broke through the layers of demonic qi and shot up into the sky. Instantly, it lit up the entire night sky. The sky was filled with sword qi that swept across the entire Chu Shuang city. Little Lin, the immortal fighting him, was shocked. In the time that he was distracted, the demon in the black qi had already escaped. This sword qi is. The green-robed immortal that Lone Moon had just saved turned pale. He looked up at the immortal in the sky and said, Father, could it be that Little Lin has already? That person frowned and was about to fly towards the white light when I Ching looked at the white light and suddenly said, Primordial Soul Sword Qi. The person who was about to fly away stopped in his tracks and turned back to look at I Ching in surprise. "You know him." Suddenly, as if thinking of something, he said, "Could it be that you are also a sword cultivator?" I Ching nodded and flew up on his sword. "Let's go over first." A look of ecstasy flashed across the father and son's faces. They hurriedly flew in front to lead the way. Lone Moon frowned and followed. He nudged I Ching and said in a low voice, "What is primordial soul sword chi?" He was a sword cultivator too. Why had he never heard of it? It is a sword chi that is carried in one's blood since birth. The higher one's cultivation level, the more sword chi there is. If one can use it, it will be beneficial to one's cultivation level. If not, it will backfire on one's body. He explained as he flew. This kind of sword chi can only be found in those who are born with a sword body.
Oh.
Lone Moon finally understood. So that's how it is. Another born with a sword body. The few of them flew all the way to the place where the white light was the brightest. That place was already in ruins. Beside the blinding white light, there was a black figure standing, staring blankly at the white light.
Who are you?
The immortal who was fighting with the fiendish cultivator shouted. He did not expect there to be someone else here. Why would? Master. Before he could finish, I Ching, who was behind him, rushed over first. He looked at the woman on the ground with a look of surprise. "Are you all right?" Shinning nodded. She was just a little hungry after walking. "This is..." I Ching looked around. There were more than 10 unconscious immortals in black lying on the ground. Shin-ing was stepping on one of them. "Oh, just a few human traffickers." She pointed to the center of the white light. "They wanted to kidnap children, so I casually..." I Ching paused. He was about to ask for more details. The immortal in green looked at the white light anxiously. Suddenly, he turned to I Ching and knelt down. "Sword Immortal, please save my son. His body constitution is the same as yours. Only you can help him remove the primordial soul sword chi from his body. As long as you are willing to save him, I, Bao Feiping, am willing to pay any price." I Ching turned to look at the small figure in the white light. He frowned. This was a child who looked less than 10 years old, but his cultivation level was already close to breaking through to the Earth Immortal level. No wonder his body could not withstand such a huge amount of primordial soul, sword chi. If this went on, he would die from the backlash of his own sword chi. Bao Feiping helped the person on the ground up. In a low voice, he said, "Don't stand on ceremony, fellow immortal. I will try my best. However, your son is too young and his primordial soul sword chi has been suppressed for too long. I cannot guarantee that I will be able to remove all the sword chi from his body. Fellow immortal, rest assured and try." Bao Feiping cupped his fists and said, "No matter what the result is, we will be grateful to you." I Ching nodded. He was just about to walk into the white light when Shunning pulled him back. "Master?" Shunning instructed, "Be careful. Come out early." "Yes, Master." I Ching was overjoyed. Indeed, Master cared about him the most. He was touched. Shunning. Sigh, it looks like dinner will have to be delayed again. Lone Moon, on the other hand, looked at the other two people in the room thoughtfully. Bao Feiping? Wasn't that the name of City Lord Chu Shuang? Big business. Oh. Chapter 119. I Ching walked directly into the pillar of light. The violent sword chi suddenly stopped, as if it had no intention of attacking. Instead, it automatically circled around I Ching's body, as if it was intimate with him. He walked directly behind the child and sat down cross-legged. In the next moment, an even more powerful sword chi erupted from his body, forming a long white dragon that circled around the pillar of light. It circled around the beam of light, and after a while, the beam of light seemed to be shrinking. Bao Feiping's tensed heart finally relaxed a little.
He could not help but sigh.
Although they were ambushed by the demons, it was a blessing in disguise. He did not expect that the sword immortal he had been searching for so many years would actually deliver himself to his doorstep. It was not time for Little Un to die. Don't worry, City Lord. Lone Moon's eyes brightened. He stepped forward and said, My good friend has always been reliable. Your son should be fine. It will take some time to remove the sword chi. Both of you were injured during the battle with the demons. It would be better for you to rest for a while. Bao Feiping paused. He looked at the man beside him, who had lost his left arm. His face paled, and he hurriedly stepped forward. Father, are you all right? I'm fine. The immortal pressed his hand down and looked at his grandson in the pillar of light. I'll be fine after meditating for a while. With that, he sat down and closed his eyes to meditate. He used his immortal chi to regrow his arm. Seeing that Lone Moon's breathing had stabilized, Bao Feiping took a step back and turned to face Lone Moon. He cupped his fists and bowed. Thank you for your help today, fellow immortals. The Bao family will never forget your kindness. How should I address you? We are from the Invincible Sect. Lone Moon smiled even more warmly. He pointed to the man in the pillar of light and said, His name is I Ching. The one beside him is Shuning. My name is Lone Moon. We are both Earth Immortals who have just ascended. Bao Feiping paused. They were indeed Earth Immortals who had just ascended, but he had never heard of the Invincible Sect. Could it be a newly established sect? Bao Feiping was confused, but he did not want to ask directly. Instead, he said politely, If not for the two of you today, Chu Shuang City would have suffered heavy losses. It might even have fallen into the hands of the demons. City Lord is too polite. Lone Moon took another look at the child in the pillar of light. He could not help but ask, I just don't understand. This primordial soul sword chi is supposed to be in the bloodline of sword cultivators at birth. By right, it should only be beneficial. Why is your son, and is even being coveted by the demons? Whether it was the demon from earlier or the person who was beaten down by Shining, it was obvious that their target was this child. Bao Feiping was taken aback. He was surprised that Meng Qi knew about the primordial soul sword chi. But then he remembered that the person who came with Bao Feiping also had an innate sword embodiment. Bao Feiping guessed that Bao Feiping must also know about it. Looking around, he raised his hand and set up an isolation array formation. Sighing, he explained in a deep voice, This Yuan soul sword chi is indeed beneficial for cultivation, but it is not the case for my son. He did not hide anything and told her everything in detail, because even though he was born with a sword body, he was also born with a divine fetus. He was born in the celestial realm and was born with immortal bones and immortal fetus. He did not need to cultivate to become an earth immortal. Because of this, the primordial soul sword chi in his body grew extremely quickly. But he was only 8 years old this year. His immortal body was too weak to withstand so much sword chi. What's more, the primordial soul sword chi is extremely overbearing. Only those with an innate sword embodiment can control it. That's why my father set up an array formation to suppress the sword chi in his body. He wanted to release it when he grew up, but who knew? As if recalling something, Bao Feiping shook his head and said, Neither my father nor I are sword immortals. We don't know much about this kind of sword chi. We did not expect the primordial soul sword chi to become even more violent the more it is suppressed. Unfortunately, his body was too coveted by others. That's why we built this weighty tower. First, it was to suppress the increasing amount of sword chi in his body. Second, it was to hide his identity as an innate sword embodiment. In private, we have been looking for other sword immortals like him to find out more about him. But it has always been difficult for sword cultivators to cultivate. There are even fewer sword immortals who successfully ascend to become sword immortals. What's more, they have to have an innate sword embodiment like him. All these years, we have searched the surrounding countries, but have not found any immortals like him. It was only 3 years ago that the sword chi in his body finally exploded. My father used up all his cultivation to suppress the sword chi. But we did not expect that this sword chi would attract the attention of others. That demon? Lone Moon asked. That's right. Bao Feiping nodded. For the past 3 years, that demon has not dared to enter the city. However, it has bewitched other cultivators to barge into the residence. It wants to kidnap my son and take over his body. But it has never succeeded. Who would have thought that it would personally barge into the residence today? So that's what happened. It's better to come at the right time than early. I really have to thank the two of you this time. Bao Feiping expressed his gratitude once again. Once my son is safe, I will personally pay you a visit to thank you. We are all fellow immortal sect cultivators. Demons are at the forefront, and we are all in the same boat. My invincible sect has always done things this way. Although he said that, when the demonic chi in the residence exploded, only the two of them rushed in. Everyone was in a hurry to escape. Bao Feiping felt even more touched. Fellow immortal, your words make me even more curious about your sect. May I know what kind of immortal sect it is? That's a long story. Our invincible sect. Lone Moon smiled so widely that his eyes became slits. He pulled Bao Feiping over and began to bluff. Shining, who was watching from the side, yawned in boredom. She glanced at the two people beside her who were already chatting happily. They looked like they regretted not meeting each other earlier. Then, she glanced at Chef, who was working in front of them. She wondered how much longer they would need.
So sleepy.
If she fell asleep now, no one would notice. Unexpectedly, I Ching sat there for an entire night. By the time the sun was high up in the sky, both he and the child had not woken up from their meditation. Lone Moon, on the other hand, had already reached an agreement with Bao Feiping. Lone Moon did not know how Father Neo managed to bluff him. By the time Shining woke up, there were more than 10 people in Invincible Sect. Moreover, they were highly skilled in alchemy, weapon refinement, talisman crafting, array formations, and so on. To put it nicely, it was a friendly exchange between the two places. But the talents were theirs, the techniques were theirs, the materials were theirs, and the sales channels were theirs. The profits from the sales, from Invincible Sect. Lone Moon felt like he had gained a flock of hens laying eggs overnight. Shining had nothing to say but to praise him.
Thank you, City Lord Bao.
Lone Moon beamed like a flower. You're welcome, fellow immortal Lone Moon. Bao Feiping's smile widened. It was as if he was the one taking advantage of Lone Moon. It's my Bo residence that's bothering your sect. Even Bao Feiping's father, who had woken up halfway through the conversation, the most powerful exalted immortal in Chu Shuang City, Bao Yi, nodded in agreement. That's right. We're the ones who are bothering you. We've said so much, but we still don't know where your sect is located? Lone Moon waved his hand and retrieved a map. He pointed to a spot at the edge of the map and said, It's here. Bao Feiping paused. Then, feeling even more guilty, he said, How could it be so far away? It's our fault. A place like this is too much for your sect. Why don't we choose another place with dense, immortal chi? As long as it's within Chu Shuang City, we can go anywhere you like. That's right. Even if it's within Chu Shuang City. Bao Yi added. Shining. Motherf ***. I've decided. I'll have an extra meal today. Chapter 120. Lone Moon's eyes flashed. Just as he was about to continue the conversation, he heard a ding. The pillar of light that had been shining brightly for the entire night suddenly dimmed. Little Un, Bao Feiping exclaimed. He rushed forward to support the child, who was about to fall to the ground. How are you? Are you all right? The child slowly opened his eyes. A moment later, he called out weakly, Father. Bao Yi rushed forward. Little Un, grandfather. Bao Feiping quickly checked his pulse and heaved a sigh of relief. He turned to I Ching and said, Thank you for your help, fellow immortal. We are very grateful. I Ching shook his head. A moment later, he replied, There's no need. Taking a deep breath, he stood up and said slowly, The sword chi in his body has been cleared, but I don't know when it will relapse. He has to learn how to control the sword chi as soon as possible. Both of them paused. Their faces were filled with worry. Shining turned to look at Chef and frowned. She subconsciously took a few steps closer to him. Fellow immortal, may I ask when the sword chi will relapse? Bao Yi stepped forward and cupped his fists. I don't know, I Ching replied. Then how do we control the primordial soul sword qi? Over the years and months, the father and son were getting more and more anxious. That meant that they could only use it through continuous practice. But little An was only 8 years old. How could he withstand such powerful sword qi? The father and son exchanged a look. They seemed to have made up their minds. Bao Yi stepped forward and cupped his fists. Fellow immortal I Ching, I know that you are just like immortal Lone Moon. I, Bao Yi, have never begged anyone in my life. Now I have one thing that I hope fellow immortal chef. Before he could finish, Shening cut him off and stepped between the two of them. Bao Yi paused. He tried to explain, fellow immortal. Actually shut up. Shening suddenly turned around and glared at him. In an instant, he felt a strong aura pressing down on him from all directions. Bao Yi paused. In less than half a second, he felt as if he had just been through life and death. He broke out in a cold sweat. When he looked again, Lone Moon had already turned around. Was he imagining things? Shening reached out to support the person in front of her. What's wrong? I Ching was stunned for a moment. Strangely, she felt a warmth in her heart. Her voice suddenly lowered, and she called out weakly. Master, she could tell. Suddenly, he spat out a mouthful of blood. CK. Lone Moon regained his composure and jumped in fright. He hurriedly ran over to support her.
Hey, don't scare me like that.
Didn't you say you were fine? Seeing how he walked into the light pillar without hesitation, she thought he would be able to do it easily. What's going on? He quickly felt the pulse on his hand. Bao Yi, who was beside him, also held on to his other hand. A moment later, their expressions changed and they looked at I Ching in surprise. Say something, Shening demanded. There are 2 streams of sword qi clashing with each other in his body. Lone Moon's face turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Although he suppressed it himself, it still hurt his meridians. Master, I'm fine. Master's instructions must be completed. Fine my ass. Lone Moon glared at Bao Yi. Your meridians are all broken. How can you call that fine? It's my little An's fault. Bao Yi looked guilty. He's been in little An's sword qi for too long. The sword qi has invaded his meridians, causing his own sword qi to fight with the external sword qi. What's the solution?
Shening asked.
Lone Moon exchanged a look with Bao Yi. He can only rely on himself to get rid of the sword qi, or to suppress it completely. But it will take a long time. How long? A few hundred years or 1,000 years. What's more, he would have to endure the pain of the sword qi's backlash every day. CK. Shun Ying's face darkened. It had been too long. Bao Yi frowned and suddenly turned to Bao Feiping. Feiping, go and get the 9 firmaments mirror. Huh?
Ah.
Bao Feiping's eyes widened. He blurted out, that's the treasure that the former king gave to Chu Shuang City. And it can only be used. Before he could finish speaking, Bao Yi's expression darkened and he glared at him. Bao Feiping paused. Then, with a look of guilt on his face, he said, Feiping is being narrow-minded. I'll go right now. Little An had saved Little An's life. A mere immortal artifact was nothing to him. Bao Feiping turned and ran toward the front yard. A moment later, he returned with a bronze mirror in his hands. He handed it to Bao Yi. This is the 9 firmaments mirror, Bao Yi explained. It's a small space made from half an immortal meridian. Entering it is like bathing in an immortal meridian. The immortal qi inside can temporarily suppress the sword qi in fellow immortal's body. Based on fellow immortal's understanding of the primordial soul sword qi, you should be able to get rid of the excess sword qi within this time frame. What's more, the passage of time in this mirror is different from the passage of time in the immortal realm. It might be 100 times faster than in this realm. Fellow immortal, you don't have to worry about time. Are you willing to give it a try? I Ching looked at the mirror in Bao Yi's hands, then glanced at Shening. Frowning, he suddenly turned to Lone Moon and said, Father Nyo Mas Dash, got it. Before Bao Yi could finish, Lone Moon rolled his eyes. Isn't it just cooking? Don't worry, I won't kill her. Get lost. That's enough, you brainless fan. I Ching finally relaxed. Yet he felt a little uncomfortable. Humph. You're lucky. Shining. Somehow, she felt like she was being looked down upon. The Bao father and son. What did he mean? What did they say? Thank you, exalted immortal Bao. I Ching looked at Bao Yi. Bao Yi conjured a seal and began chanting a spell to activate the immortal artifact in his hand. The mirror in his hand emitted a blinding white light. Bao Yi pointed a finger at I Ching's forehead. The next moment, the white light enveloped I Ching's entire body. Fellow immortal I Ching. Bao Feiping hurriedly said, this 9 heavens billion mirror can only be used once. Fellow Taoist, after you get rid of the sword qi, you don't have to rush out. The immortal qi inside the mirror was very beneficial to one's cultivation. Thank you. I Ching nodded. As soon as he finished speaking, his entire body transformed into a white light and entered the mirror. The originally smooth surface of the mirror was suddenly covered by a layer of white mist. It no longer reflected anything. Everyone present heaved a sigh of relief. Bao Yi handed the mirror to Lone Moon and said, fellow immortal I Ching will need some time to get rid of the sword qi. Why don't the two of you stay here for the night? Lone Moon hesitated. It was indeed troublesome to travel back and forth. What's more, this mirror belonged to Bao Yi. It would be better for them to stay here than to return to Invincible Sect. He nodded and said, thank you, exalted immortal. After some thought, he added, I wonder how long this good friend of mine will have to stay in the mirror? Although the time inside the mirror is different from the time in the immortal realm, this mirror can only be entered once. That's why I'm not sure exactly how much of a difference there is. It's said that one day in the immortal realm is at least 100 years inside the mirror. What's more, there's half an immortal meridian's immortal qi inside the mirror. Ordinary immortals would need more than 1,000 years to absorb half an immortal meridian. I see. That meant it would take more than 10 days. So you don't have to rush. Wait for half a month. Master. Before he could finish speaking, the mirror in Lone Moon's hand shattered. A familiar figure appeared in front of them and grabbed Xinying's hand. Are you hungry? Do you want breakfast, lunch, dinner, or supper? Xinying, Lone Moon, the 3 Bao brothers. Chapter 121. Fellow Immortal Lone Moon. Bao Feiping asked worriedly, is fellow immortal I Ching really alright? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Don't worry, he knows what he's doing, he should be fine. What the hell should he be? And why did he rush into the kitchen the moment he came out of the 9 heavens mirror? Immortals did not need to eat. Although there was a kitchen in the residence, it was only used occasionally by immortals who were gluttonous. Most of the utensils in the kitchen were incomplete. But it was one thing for I Ching to bring oil, salt, sauce, and vinegar with him. But why did he bring pots, bowls, ladles, and cooking ingredients? Even bowls, chopsticks, and tea were all there. How did he look like he was going out? He was obviously moving. Even if I Ching brought out a set of tables and chairs, Bao Feiping would not be surprised. Then he really brought out a set of 4 chairs. Winky face, wait. Why did even immortal Lone Moon sit down with a natural expression? Chef, I want to eat seafood. Yes, master. No problem, master. For the entire morning, Bao Feiping watched in bewilderment as I Ching brought out the dishes from the kitchen. Then, the 2 men in front of him devoured them quickly, one faster than the other. They even invited him to join them as they picked at the food. City Lord Bao, join us. Don't stand on ceremony. Lone Moon smiled as he invited them. Then his expression changed. Holy shit, Xinying, leave me a piece. You're almost done. Out of politeness, Bao Feiping had no choice but to take a bite. He did not expect it to taste quite good. Just as he was about to take a second piece, his bowl was empty. He was getting more and more confused about these people. Bao Feiping sat there for 2 hours with mixed feelings. Finally, the two of them put down their chopsticks. Your son should be fine now, right? Let's go and take a look, just in case. Lone Moon wiped his mouth and resumed his elegant demeanor. He no longer looked as pathetic as before. Bao Feiping paused, suddenly realizing something. Could it be that they stayed here to cook because they were worried that something might happen after his father treated Littlin? Was that why they stayed here for so long? So that's why. His heart warmed, and he stood up gratefully. Thank you, fellow immortals. He quickly turned around and led them to the front yard. Sure enough, Bao Yi had already finished healing the child. When he saw them coming in from afar, he quickly walked up to them. Father. The child threw himself into Bao Feiping's arms and peeked his little head out from Bao Feiping's shoulder, looking curiously at the three people behind them.
Bao
Feiping carried his son in his arms. He could finally relax after a whole day of worrying. His heart was filled with mixed emotions. He invited Shining and the others to take a seat, then carried his son and sat beside Bao Yi. Bao Yi looked at I Ching and said, "This is Sword Immortal I Ching, who saved your life. Come and thank him for saving your life." The child was stunned for a moment, then sensibly ran down from his father's arms. He took 2 steps forward, cupped his fists, and bowed respectfully to I Ching. "Little and thanks, Immortal, for saving my life."
Don't mention it.
I Ching's expression did not change at all. He replied in the same indifferent tone, "There's no need to stand on ceremony.
Besides, you saved me."
He was just following Master's orders. What should he cook for Master tonight? Even so, fellow Immortal, you were injured because of my son. We didn't really help you. Bao Feiping took a step forward, trying his best to ignore the broken mirror. He exchanged a look with Bao Yi and continued, "Speaking of which, fellow Immortal seems to be fated with my son. Not only do you have the same physique as him, but you also appeared just when he was in danger." "That's right." Bao Yi nudged his grandson forward. "This is indeed a great deal of fate." I Ching frowned and glanced at the two of them. "If the two of you have something to say, just say it." The two of them paused. Awkwardness flashed across their faces. A moment later, Bao Yi sighed and stepped forward. "To tell you the truth, we do have a favor to ask of you." Bao Yi lowered his head and held the hand of the confused child. "Although there are many immortals in the immortal realm, sword immortals are rare. Even in Chu Shuang City, including the two of you, there are less than 5 of them. Little N is still young. He needs guidance. But his body can only train in swordsmanship. Unfortunately, there is no one in our big residence who can help him." Fellow Immortal I Ching. Bao Feiping stepped forward anxiously. "Little N's situation. I'm sure you've experienced it in the lower realm. It might be even more dangerous. My father and I can protect him for a while, but we can't protect him forever. The most important thing is for him to learn. So." He paused and glanced at Bao Yi. He cupped his fists and said solemnly, "Fellow Immortal, could you please accept my son as your disciple and guide him on the path to becoming a sword immortal?" The moment he said that, not only I Ching, but even Lone Moon, who was at the side, was shocked. "Accept a disciple?" Bao Feiping stood up and looked at the child on the ground. Then he looked at I Ching and felt amused. "City Lord Bao, you must be joking. Although your son is only 8 years old, he was born with an immortal body. He is already an earth immortal. I Ching has just ascended and is only an earth immortal. Their cultivation levels are similar. How can they be master and disciple?" If not for their serious expressions, Bao Feiping would have thought that they were deliberately trying to humiliate I Ching. "Fellow immortals, please don't misunderstand." Bao Feiping hurriedly explained, "I really want my son to be your disciple. Although my son was born with an immortal body, he only knows a few basic Dharma spells. He doesn't know anything about swordsmanship or sword techniques, let alone sword intent. Both of you know that sword immortals cultivate their understanding of swordsmanship. From the looks of it, he has not started yet. Fellow Immortal I Ching should naturally address him as master." Lone Moon thought for a moment and asked, "Although sword immortals are hard to find, with Chu Shuang City's power, It should not be difficult to find someone who is willing to teach your son. Why look for Chef I Ching? Wouldn't it be better to find a sword immortal with a higher cultivation level? Because fellow immortal I Ching is the most suitable, Bao Yi suddenly said. Lone Moon paused and then understood. It was possible to find other sword immortals, but there was only one sword immortal with an innate sword body. Even demons coveted his body. How could he guarantee that a sword immortal would not? Being a disciple of I Ching, who also had an innate sword body, was indeed the most suitable and safest choice. City Lord Bao's fatherly heart really moves me. Lone Moon's eyes brightened. He suddenly felt that the cooperation they had discussed earlier could be deepened. If that's the case, it would be hard for us to reject. Isn't that right, Chef? Bao Feiping immediately nudged him and winked at him. His eyes were filled with food expenses, food expenses, food expenses. I Ching frowned and lowered his head to look at the child in front of him, then at Shining. He was about to speak when Lone Moon interrupted him. Don't worry, City Lord. I'll make the decision. It's decided. Thank you, fellow immortal. The two of them were overjoyed. They hurriedly nudged the child in front of them. Little N, hurry and greet Master. Only then did the child kneel down with a blank look on his face. Disciple greets Master. I Ching's frown deepened. He stepped to the side and said, City Lord Bao, this matter, if no one objects, it's decided. Lone Moon interrupted him again. Oh yes, I still don't know your son's full name? Oh, he has always followed his mother's surname, Ning.
His name is Z.N.
Ningzi.
What?
Lone Moon's eyes widened, his expression darkening. Holy shit. Ningzi and for all, I object. I Ching, Shining, Bo San. Chapter 122. My wife used up all her primordial essence to give birth to him. That's why he took his mother's surname. Thinking that Lone Moon was surprised at his son's surname, Bao Feiping explained, Fellow immortal I Ching, you can give him a Taoist name. From now on, he will be considered as your sex. No. Before he could finish, Lone Moon objected again.
What?
The two from the Bao family paused, confused. He doesn't need a Taoist name. No. I mean, he can't be I Ching's disciple. Lone Moon's expression darkened. He said seriously, he can't join the invincible sect either. Absolutely not.
Why?
Bao Feiping was even more confused. Did he agree just now? Because Lone Moon stared blankly at her. His mouth, which had always been smooth and nimble, suddenly froze. After a while, he said, Our sect has filled up the slots.
Huh?
What did he mean? Bao Feiping regained his composure. He turned to the person beside him and said, I Ching is the one taking him in as a disciple. Isn't that right, Chef? Bao Feiping's tone changed, and he gave Lone Moon a look that said, If you agree, you won't get any food allowance for a year. I Ching. Bao Feiping. Didn't he say he could make the decision? Fellow immortal I. The two turned to look at I Ching. I Ching glanced at the child who had the same fate as him. His heart softened. It's not impossible to take him in as a disciple. Lone Moon's heart tightened. He cursed, Chef. Don't spout nonsense. He continued, It's just that I haven't started my apprenticeship yet. I have to ask. He subconsciously turned to look at Shining. Master, not taking him in. Shining threw out two words. I Ching immediately turned and answered firmly, Not taking him in. The two. What happened to helping each other? City Lord, exalted immortal. We have urgent matters to attend to in the sect. Since your son is fine, we will take our leave first. Lone Moon pulled them up with each hand and turned to walk out. Before the two could react, he flew on his sword and disappeared. Bao Feiping. Bao Yi. What was going on? Lone Moon pulled the two of them along as they flew at top speed. His face was dark the whole time, and he only stopped when they reached the foot of Invincible Sex Mountain. I Ching was just about to speak. Don't speak. Lone Moon cut her off. I know you pity that child, but you really can't accept him as a disciple. Anyone can, but you can't. I know you think I'm unsympathetic. Lone Moon paced back and forth anxiously. If he doesn't practice swordsmanship soon, the primordial soul sword chi might explode again. But I'm doing this for your own good and for the sake of Invincible Sect. There are some things that you might not understand. I'll explain it to you slowly. Maybe you'll have to thank me in the future.
Huh?
What are you doing? Before he could finish, I Ching suddenly raised his hand and pushed him away. Scram. Who cares about your explanation? Don't block my conversation with Master. Lone Moon. Damn it. Master. He took off the storage bag beside him and handed it over. He looked at Shunning seriously. I'm about to break through. This time it might take a long time. This is the food that I prepared just now. If you're hungry, you can just take it. Oh, okay. Shunning took it. Breakthrough? Lone Moon did not have time to complain. He squeezed over. You just ascended. How could it be? Wait, your immortal chi. Shunning examined his body carefully and realized that the immortal chi on his body was unimaginably thick. It was just that he was forcefully suppressing it. Could this immortal chi be from the mirror? Didn't you come out after getting rid of the sword chi?
Why?
He had only been in there for less than 10 minutes. How long did you stay in there? The time inside was different from the outside. 100 years. Not even 100 years. It would be difficult to even get rid of the sword chi in such a short time, right? Oh, I was afraid that I would miss Master's meal if I stayed in there for too long. He answered seriously. So I just absorbed all the immortal chi and sword chi in there.
He just did not have time to absorb them into his dantian.
One piece. Holy shit. Disregarding the fact that the sword chi belonged to someone else, it was already very difficult to get rid of it. He actually managed to subdue it? What's more, that was half an immortal meridian. For an ordinary immortal to absorb such a huge amount of immortal chi, it would be impossible without 400 or 500 years. Not only did he manage to do it in 100 years, he also kept it suppressed and did not break through. This pervert. I Ching's expression changed. The immortal chi on his body was about to explode. It was obvious that he could not suppress it for much longer. He looked at Shunning again. Master, when I break through later, there will be a heavenly tribulation. You must remember not to go near it. Seeing that she nodded, he mounted his sword and flew out of Invincible Sect. He landed a few miles away. Indeed, in a short while, there was a huge explosion of immortal chi. The sky changed color. The originally clear skies suddenly darkened. Compared to the lightning tribulation in the lower realm, the tribulation experienced by immortals was obviously very different. At this time, the sky was clearly divided into two halves. One half was still filled with thunder, while the other half was a fiery red. Piercing heavenly fire was burning fiercely. After a while, a dragon's roar sounded. A fire dragon flew down from the sky. In an instant, the area within a radius of 1,000 meters turned into a sea of fire. Even the people of Invincible Sect, who were a few miles away, could feel the scorching heat. It was as if it could burn everything in the world. Suddenly, they understood why I Ching flew so far away to break through. After the heavenly fire descended, it was followed by the lightning tribulation. Lone Moon looked up at the area where the heavenly fire and lightning tribulation were intertwined. Drifting Bitao had told him that immortals had to endure 81 lightning tribulations and 36 wildfires. Although he was not satisfied, he was still worried. Not to mention the lightning tribulation, the heavenly fire was not like the deviant fire that he had subdued in the mystic realm. Even with the body of a sword immortal, it would be very difficult to handle. The commotion here had already alarmed many disciples of Invincible Sect. He had no choice but to quickly set up an array and instruct everyone not to go near. Only then did he start to count the number of wildfires in detail. 34, 35, 36. Finally, wait. 37, 38, 39 more, and more. Holy shit, Didn't they say that there would only be 36 fires and one breakthrough? What the hell? Was there a big holiday buy one get one free? Thinking about what happened in the Azure world, he subconsciously looked at Shunning. Shunning, did you see anything? Could it be that someone in the immortal world was tampering with the heavenly tribulation? Shunning, who was chewing on a pastry, paused. She shook her head and said, No. No, then how could it be? Wait. Breaking through one level would indeed result in 36 wildfires. If it was not because the heavens did not learn math well, then it could only be because I Ching had broken through two big realms. Was he trying to go from Earth Immortal to Mystic Immortal? 10,000 alpacas galloped across his heart. He started to count the wildfires more seriously. 70, 71, 72. Then 73, 74. Winky Face, that wildfire burned a total of 108 fires before it stopped. Lone Moon. MP? This bunch of stupid cheats. F***CK. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.